Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world where the line between human and not quite human yet is still fuzzy. It's about 7 million years ago, and you're not strolling down a busy street or scrolling through a phone. You're clinging to life on a hot, grassy floodplain in what will one day be called Chad in Central Africa. The air tastes dry, with a faint metallic tang from dust blown off a distant lake. You can smell water and mud where hippos wallow, but also the sharp scent of predators. A lion, except not quite. The ancestors of big cats, lingers somewhere beyond the scrub. Insects whine in your ears, and the light is so harsh it makes you squint even with your thick brow ridges. You probably won't survive this if you aren't paying attention, so keep your ears open. This is Who Was the First Human? Tracing our origins from ape to Homo sapiens. If you love following the thread of our story all the way back to its tangled beginnings, settle in. Post your location and your local time below. Just imagine where your ancestors were at that exact moment, millions of years ago, and if you're still awake at the end, we'll have crossed almost the entire history of our species together. Alright, let's begin. No seat belts here. Just your feet, your hands, and a very, very long walk forward in time. You stand, small by modern standards, barely a meter tall. Your face is flatter than a chimpanzee's, your brow heavy, your snout short. The air is a mix of grassland and scattered forest, patchy shade under trees that give you a break from the relentless heat. You can move on two legs for short distances, though your arms still sway with a tree climber's reach. The ground crunches with dry grass stems, and the soil beneath is cracked like a jigsaw of baked clay. Somewhere nearby lies the fossil we will one day call Sahelanthropus chadensis. It is not human in the way we think of the word, but it belongs to a branch of life that split from the chimpanzee lineage around this time. That split, the last common ancestor, isn't a single dramatic event. No one woke up one day and said, "Congratulations, you're human now." Instead, small populations of apes in different parts of Africa adapted to slightly different niches. Over thousands of generations, these differences added up. For Sahelanthropus, one of those differences was posture. The opening at the base of the skull, the foramen magnum, sits farther forward than in quadrupedal apes, hinting at an ability to hold the head upright while walking on two legs. The teeth are small, with thick enamel, not built for ripping through the tough skins of tropical fruits alone, but for grinding a wider variety of foods, including seeds, roots, and possibly meat scavenged from carcasses. The environment you're in is restless. The Miocene epoch is winding down, and the African climate is becoming cooler and drier. Forests that once stretched unbroken are now shrinking, replaced by mixed woodland and open grasslands. This patchwork habitat forces you to adapt. You can still climb trees for safety at night, wrapping your long fingers around bark and branches, but you also spend more time on the ground, crossing open spaces to forage. Bipedalism, even in a partial form, you can stand to scan for predators over tall grass, carry food in your hands, and perhaps travel more efficiently between the shrinking clusters of trees. But here's the thing, bipedalism doesn't arrive fully formed like some neat evolutionary package. In your gait, there's still a lot of wobble. Your legs are short compared to your arms, and your toes spread for gripping branches. Running, not your strong suit. If a saber-toothed cat bursts from cover, your best option is to sprint to the nearest trunk and scramble up before it closes the distance. That moment, every time, is a gamble. You live in small bands, maybe half a dozen adults, a few juveniles, and infants clinging to their mothers. Communication is more than random calls. There are probably consistent vocal signals for alarm, food, or social bonding. Your day is a rotation of foraging for fruits, digging for roots with sticks, turning over logs for insects, and occasionally finding the remains of a large animal brought down by something else. A femur cracked open for marrow is a rare feast. If you could look at yourself through modern eyes, you'd see a strange mix ape-like shoulders and arms, a skull with both ancient and surprisingly modern hints, and a pelvis tilted just enough to steady your body when upright. You'd also notice the beginnings of a mental shift. Your brain, around 350 cubic centimeters, isn't much bigger than a chimpanzee's, but subtle wiring changes might be allowing better spatial memory for where fruiting trees are or which paths lead back to a safe sleeping site. Predators are constant. You listen for the cough of a leopard, the rustle of grass that isn't wind. Crocodiles haunt the river margins. Even snakes, giant pythons, can take a juvenile. Danger doesn't feel like a single event. It's a constant background hum, a presence you live with every moment. And yet, there's curiosity too. A bird's call that sounds different draws your eyes. An unfamiliar plant is turned in your hands, sniffed, maybe tasted. That curiosity is a seed that will grow in our lineage for millions of years. In Ethiopia, not long after, Ardipithecus cadeba and its younger cousin Ardipithecus remedis appear in the record, spanning roughly 5.8 to 4.4 million years ago. If you picture yourself as Arda, you're lighter, around 50 kilograms for males, smaller for females, and your hands are not knuckle walkers like chimps. Your feet still have a grasping big toe, but the pelvis is reshaped to help with upright walking. Ardi's world is more wooded than Sahelanthropus, suggesting bipedalism wasn't just for open savannas. It might have evolved as a way to move between food patches without dropping to all fours. This is important because the myth that we came down from the trees only because the forest disappeared is too simple. In reality, early hominins probably mixed habitats. Part forest, part open, and bipedalism may have given them flexibility in both. Food is a central driver of these changes. In dry seasons, fruit is scarce, so you dig for tubers or strip bark. These are tougher foods, and they demand teeth that can withstand wear. That's why you see thicker enamel in early hominins. It's like upgrading from delicate wine glasses to sturdy mugs. Over time, this also shapes facial structure. Smaller canines than in apes, reduced snouts, and broader molars. Social life is tight-knit. In your small group, grooming is the glue that keeps tensions down. You don't have language yet, but you have eyes, touch, and vocalizations that carry meaning. A grunt might mean keep away. A chirp could signal a safe find of figs. A loud bark-like call might freeze everyone into silence at the sight of movement. What's striking is the pace. Millions of years pass in these small incremental shifts. If you could stand at one end of this timeline and look down its length, you wouldn't see a straight road. It's more like a braided river. Different channels of hominins, adapting in their own ways, sometimes merging, sometimes ending. Some, like Sahelanthropus, vanish, leaving only fossils. Others branch into forms that will carry forward traits we still have today. But in this moment, under the heat and dust, you're not thinking about the future. You're thinking about the shadow that just moved near the acacia trees. Your band freezes. It could be a hyena. It could be the wind. Slowly, you stand taller, rocking onto your hind legs, scanning the grass. That motion, that habit of standing upright, is one of the first steps in a very, very long walk toward us. The tension breaks when a herd of antelope bursts from cover, bounding away. The danger's past, but your heart still thuds. You lower yourself again and continue moving, the ground warm under your bare feet. Ahead, there's a grove with ripe berries. You'll fill your hands and your cheek pouches, retreat to the safety of the low branches, and rest in the shade while cicadas drone overhead. In a few million years, someone will find the bones of your kind and wonder if you were human. The answer, as it turns out, is both yes and no. You're part of the story, a chapter with no clean start or finish. Just one of many experiments in what it might mean to walk upright. Think a little further ahead and leave a faint footprint in the African soil. You're in East Africa now, about 6 million years ago, and the air feels different here, thicker with the scent of wet earth and vegetation. more humid than the dusty floodplains of Sahelanthropus. The horizon is broken by green ridges and patches of woodland, and the land drops into valleys carved by seasonal streams. When you walk, you sometimes leave faint prints in damp clay, the kind that can last for a day before the wind erases them. Your body is a curious balance between two worlds. A climber's shoulders, a walker's legs. You're one of the early bipedal walkers, what the fossil record will call Ororhyntuganensis and Ardipithecus ramidus. From the outside, you still look mostly ape-like. Long arms, a narrow chest, a head smaller than a modern human child's. But something about the way you hold yourself is different. You can step from root to root on the forest floor, pause, then walk upright across a sunlit patch without dropping to all fours. The muscles in your thighs engage differently now, stronger for pushing you forward when your spine is vertical, and although your big toe is still divergent, perfect for curling around a branch, it's starting to pull slightly inward. Evolution is tinkering. If you're Orrin, your fossils will be found millions of years later in Kenya's Tugen Hills, embedded in reddish sediments that once formed the slopes of an ancient forest. Those thigh bones, femurs, will be examined under bright lab lights, their shape telling a story: a thickened wall at the neck of the femur for weight bearing during upright walking, an angle that aligns the knee under the body rather than swinging outward like a chimp's. These are not just random quirks, they're structural investments in a new way of moving. Still, you aren't a marathon runner. Walking upright is a little awkward. Your lower back isn't curved the way ours is. Your gait is a careful sway, and you're slow compared to the quadrupeds around you. If danger comes, your first instinct is still to run for a tree, arms outstretched, fingers gripping bark before you even think. Food drives your movement. You range across mixed landscapes, open areas dotted with grasses, then dense stands of fig trees, then marshy pockets where papyrus grows. Each food source is seasonal. During the wet months, figs are abundant. In the dry months, you dig with sticks for underground tubers, fibrous, starchy, hard on the teeth. This is why you and your kin have thicker enamel than apes who rely mostly on soft fruit. You can survive lean seasons better, grinding down roots and seeds when others go hungry. A few million years later, Ardipithecus ramidus, Arde, will carry this story forward. Picture yourself as Arde in Ethiopia's Afar region, around 4.4 million years ago. The world here isn't a treeless savanna, as scientists once assumed early bipeds needed. It's a mosaic of woodland, brush, and grassy clearings. The riverbanks are lined with tall trees whose branches are alive with birdsong. The forest floor smells of damp leaves and animal dung. You can hear the distant bark of a colobus monkey, the flutter of pigeons lifting into the canopy. Your body is lighter than Orrin's females. Maybe 45 kilograms, males slightly larger. You walk upright on the ground, but climb often, and your hands aren't built for knuckle walking. Your palms are more like ours, allowing finer manipulation of objects. You might strip bark from a twig to dig out insects or peel tough husks from nuts. No one's making stone tools yet, but the raw behaviors are there. Select, modify, use. One of the biggest surprises about Ardi, when she's finally reconstructed in a modern lab, is that your kind didn't live in the open savanna that popular imagination insists on. You're in a forested environment, and yet you walk upright. This means bipedalism wasn't simply an adaptation to running across grasslands. It may have evolved for moving efficiently between food patches, keeping your hands free, or even regulating body temperature by exposing less of your body to direct sun. You live in a social group, though not as large as those of modern baboons. There's constant negotiation, grooming sessions to smooth over conflicts, soft chirps and hoots to keep contact in dense vegetation. Your eyes are expressive, whites just barely visible, making gaze a subtle tool for communication. You're alert to the moods of your groupmates. A shift in posture, a sudden stillness, can mean predator. Predators are still an ever-present fact, Leopards stalk in the shadows, their rosetted coats melting into dappled light. Giant eagles watch from above. A shadow passing over the forest floor makes you glance up. Crocodiles lie in wait near river crossings. The upright stance helps here, not because you can fight better, but because you can see further in certain landscapes. A flicker of movement at a distance gives you a few extra seconds to decide climb, freeze, or bolt. In this time, the climate is beginning to show more swings. Seasonal patterns shift. Wet years bring lush growth. Dry years shrink water sources. These cycles force your kind to be adaptable. You can't rely on a single type of food or habitat. That's the quiet genius of your evolving form. You're not a specialist locked into one diet or one mode of movement. You're a generalist, able to forage in multiple niches. That flexibility will be the survival ticket for your descendants. At night, you nest in trees, weaving a platform of branches to keep you above the reach of most predators. The smell of leaves fills your nostrils. The air cools as insects quiet down. Sometimes the wind carries the sound of distant hippos grunting in a wetland, or the eerie coughing call of a leopard. You sleep lightly, waking at small noises. Your brain is still small, 300 to 400 cubic centimeters, but the wiring inside is quietly changing. Memory is improving. You can recall not just where food is now, but where it will be later. Spatial maps are forming in your head. Social bonds are more intricate. You remember who groomed you yesterday and who refused. These memories shape your choices, who you approach, who you avoid. From a modern perspective, it's easy to underestimate how radical this moment in history is. For millions of years before, ape-like ancestors lived mostly in trees, moving quadrupedally when on the ground. Now, a shift is happening that will define the human lineage. The commitment, however partial, to walking upright. It frees your hands, alters your pelvis, changes the distribution of your body's weight. It's a slow revolution, one that will take millions more years to refine, but it's already setting you apart from the other apes of your time. And yet, you wouldn't think of yourself as different. You're just trying to survive, keeping your infant close, finding enough to eat, avoiding being eaten. Evolution isn't a plan you're aware of. It's the sum of countless tiny advantages, each one helping just enough to pass your genes to the next generation. There's an irony in the way your story will be pieced together. Scientists will only know you through fragments. A molar here, a piece of jaw there, a single femur. They'll give you names, Orin, Australopithecus, draw diagrams of your posture, debate whether you really walked upright or just part of the time. They'll argue over whether you belong on the direct human line or a side branch. But in your time, those distinctions don't matter. What matters is whether your young survive to have young of their own. Still, you're leaving traces beyond bones. Every time you strip a stick to dig for termites, you leave marks that could fossilize under the right conditions. Every footprint in soft mud is a potential time capsule. Most will vanish, but a few, if conditions are perfect, will survive long enough for creatures millions of years later to study them. And imagine this moment. It's afternoon now. You and your group have been foraging since dawn, moving steadily along a ridge where the trees thin out. The light here is golden, the air drier. You pause to scan the open ground ahead. Something catches your eye. A small movement in the grass. It's not a predator, it's a tortoise. Slow and oblivious. You approach, tilt your head, and reach out to touch its shell. The surface is hard and smooth. Unlike the textures you usually encounter, you don't eat it, you don't know you could, but the encounter lingers in your mind. You've discovered something new, and that curiosity is as much a part of your survival as your legs or teeth. You move on. The sky is shifting toward evening. The wind changes, carrying the scent of distant rain. Tonight you'll sleep in a tree that leans over a shallow stream, where the sound of water will mask small noises. You'll curl up on your woven platform, one arm around your infant, your body balanced in the crook of a branch. Above, the stars you can't name will scatter across the blackness. And far, far in the future, we'll look back at you, not as a curiosity, but as a crucial step in the long chain that leads to us. You're not the first human, not yet, but you're walking toward that title step by cautious step, across a landscape that's already shaping the way your body and mind will evolve. It's around 3.9 million years ago now, and you're in what will one day be called Ethiopia. The air is dry and warm, carrying the smell of grass, dust, and the faint sweetness of acacia blossoms. The ground is uneven, patches of packed earth, broken by clusters of low shrubs and scattered trees. In the distance, dark volcanic highlands rise against a pale sky. You're no longer Sahelanthropus or Orrorin. You are Australopithecus afarensis, one of the most famous of our early ancestors, and you've got a celebrity in your ranks. A small female we will one day nickname Lucy. From the outside, you're striking. At just over a metre tall, with long arms and a short, stocky body, you still look like an ape to modern eyes, but your gait tells a different story. You walk upright most of the time now, your pelvis shaped to balance your torso over your legs, your knees angled inward, so your feet land under your body. With each step, your big toe is aligned with the others. No more splaying out for branch gripping, though your curved fingers still mark you as a climber when necessary. Your world is a patchwork. Open savanna grasslands blend into areas of woodland and gallery forests along rivers. Herds of antelope and wild pigs move across the landscape, trailed by early relatives of lions and hyenas. Baboons bark in the distance. The air is alive with insect hum and bird calls. You share this space with many other species of hominin-like creatures, close cousins, distant cousins, and maybe some evolutionary dead ends. Competition is constant, not just with predators, but with each other for food and safe sleeping spots. Your teeth and jaw tell a big part of your story. They're larger than those of earlier hominins, with thick enamel and broad molars for grinding tough plant matter. You eat a varied diet: fruits, leaves, seeds, tubers, and when the chance comes, bits of meat scavenged from carcasses left by predators. You've mastered the art of extracting marrow from bones by smashing them with stones, not yet true stone tools in the formal sense, but definitely a sign of emerging problem solving. If someone were to follow you for a day, they'd see a pattern: dawn foraging for soft fruits in nearby trees, then a cautious trip to open ground in small groups to dig for roots or find edible seeds. Always, someone scans the surroundings while the others work. At midday, you rest in the shade of a tree, grooming each other to remove parasites and strengthen social bonds. Grooming is as much about trust as hygiene. It's your way of saying, I belong here and you belong with me. In the evening, you move toward a sleeping area, often a cluster of tall trees where each of you builds a nest from bent branches. Walking upright has its trade-offs. You can see further across the grasslands, carry food in your hands, and cover distances more efficiently than a knuckle walker. But you've lost some speed in the trees, and on the ground you're more exposed to predators. Survival depends on vigilance and sticking together. Lone wanderers are rare, and usually short-lived. It's hard to overstate how important Australopithecus afarensis is to the human story. The fossil record gives us over 300 individuals from this species, showing incredible variation, but also clear patterns. A pelvis built for bipedalism, a rib cage that still flares like an ape's, long forearms for climbing, and a brain size between 300 and 7,500 cubic centimeters, about a third the size of ours. You are comfortable both on the ground and in the trees, a true transitional figure between earlier hominins and the more human-like species that will follow. And then there are your footprints. One day, around 3.66 million years ago, you and two companions will walk across a stretch of volcanic ash dampened by rain at a place we'll call Laetoli in modern Tanzania. The ash will harden, preserving your tracks for millions of years. They'll show a gait remarkably like ours. Heel strike, arch, toe off. No grasping toes. When those prints are found in 1976, they will make headlines around the world. The debate over whether you are a habitual biped will be over. Your feet will have spoken. Life is still dangerous. Big cats are a constant threat, as are crocodiles in the rivers and massive snakes in the grass. Your only weapons are your wits, your group, and the occasional use of sticks and stones. You can intimidate smaller predators by standing tall, waving your arms, and making loud vocalizations. But against a determined leopard, your best option is escape. Your social structure is complex for a creature of your brain size. You live in mixed-sex groups, and while there's competition among males, it's not the brutal dominance of some other primates. Bonds form through grooming, food sharing, and mutual defense. You may not have language, but you have a rich set of calls, gestures, and facial expressions. You know who you can trust and who might steal your food the moment you look away. The environment is changing. Over the next million years, Africa will experience cycles of wet and dry periods. Forests will shrink and expand. Rivers will shift course, and grasslands will spread. You're adaptable, but each shift forces hard choices. In drier times, you rely more on underground storage organs, roots and tubers that hold water and starch. In wetter times, fruit becomes plentiful, and you spend more hours in the trees. This flexibility is one of your greatest advantages over more specialized animals. By now, your kind is spread across much of East Africa, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, and possibly further. Each population faces slightly different challenges, and these subtle differences will, over generations, nudge some groups toward different evolutionary paths. One day, some of your descendants will give rise to Australopithecus africanus in southern Africa, while others will eventually lead to the genus Homo. But you won't live to see that. In your world, the only concern is getting through the day alive and well fed. Lucy herself, if you could see her, would look much like you. Small-bodied, long-armed, walking upright, but still comfortable in trees. Her discovery in 1974, 3.2 million years after her death, will change the way humans see their own past. She will be reconstructed in museums, her bones copied and displayed around the globe. But in her time, she's just another member of a troop, moving through a dangerous and changing landscape, looking for figs, dodging predators, and raising young. Your life is full of small, repeated rituals. When you wake, you stretch your limbs and check for signs of danger. You listen to the calls of other animals. Alarm cries from birds can mean a predator is near. You forage with care, remembering where food sources are and avoiding areas where you've seen lions or snakes before. You rest in midday shade, using the lull to groom and doze. In the evening, you climb to safety, tucking yourself into a nest. Every choice you make, where to walk, when to climb, which way to flee, has life or death stakes. The upright stance you now use most of the time isn't just about seeing farther or carrying food. It's about being able to move between two worlds, the safety of trees and the resources of the ground. That combination is what will allow your line to survive when others vanish. By the time your kind disappears from the fossil record around 2.9 million years ago, you'll have left an undeniable mark on the evolutionary path. Your bones will show that bipedalism is here to stay. Your footprints will prove that the human way of walking is millions of years older than the human brain, and your adaptability to mixed habitats will set the stage for the next leap in our story, the arrival of early Homo. But tonight, as the sun drops low and the light turns golden, you aren't thinking about the future. You're climbing into a tree with your group, feeling the bark rough under your fingers, the muscles in your forearms pulling you upward. You find your sleeping branch, weave a small platform of twigs, and curl up. The air cools, and the smell of crushed leaves is in your nose. Somewhere below, a leopard pads silently past, unseen but sensed. Your heart slows only when its scent fades. You close your eyes. Above you, the first stars prick the deepening blue. Tomorrow, you'll walk again, upright, watchful, carrying the long experiment of bipedalism forward, step by step, across the shifting landscapes of ancient Africa. It's about 4 million to 2 million years ago now, and the African continent is a restless place. The earth tilts, wobbles, and breathes in geological time, and with each shift, the climate pulses between wetter and drier phases. You're in East Africa, somewhere between what we now call Ethiopia and Tanzania, and the land you walk is never quite the same from one lifetime to the next. Rivers swell and then vanish. Forests stretch outward and then shrivel. Grasslands roll over old lake beds where hippos once wallowed. These environmental pressures will shape not just where you can live, but what you must become. The days are marked by a sharper contrast now. Searing sun over open plains, cool shadows that retreat quickly in the dry season. Dust devils twist across the savannah, carrying the smell of parched earth. When the wet season comes, the air thickens with humidity, and the grass rises so high it brushes your waist. You breathe in the green scent of fresh growth, hear the steady drone of insects, and smell the musk of large grazing herds. These changes are not just background noise, they are the push and pull that test your adaptability. In wetter years, forest patches return, fig trees fruit heavily, and water is plentiful. In drier years, the land hardens, plants wither, and waterholes shrink into muddy, contested pits where predators wait. If you are a hominin in this shifting world, whether Australopithecus afarensis, Australopithecus africanus, or one of your close relatives, you must be ready to adjust. Your anatomy is already a response to this instability. Walking upright lets you travel farther between resources and keeps your body higher off the blistering ground. But bipedalism is also energy efficient for long distances, something increasingly useful as patches of food become scattered. In open country, you can stand tall to look for danger, spotting predators at a distance. Yet the trees are never far from your mind. You still climb for fruit, for safety, and for sun. The climate shifts aren't gentle. Around 2.8 million years ago, a major cooling event begins to tip the balance. Global ice sheets expand, lowering sea levels and changing rainfall patterns across Africa. Savannas spread wider, forests retract, the air is drier, the seasons more extreme. This is when adaptability becomes more than an advantage, it's survival itself. Your diet has to stretch. In lean months, you chew fibrous roots, strip bark, and crack nuts. You grind seeds between your teeth until your jaw muscles ache. Your molars are broad, your enamel thick, designed for crushing hard plant matter. You may scavenge meat from carcasses left by predators. Cutting meat from bone isn't yet common, but pounding bones with rocks to reach marrow is within your skill set. Each calorie matters. These environmental changes don't just affect you, they ripple through the whole ecosystem. Some animals vanish from the landscape, unable to adapt to the new rhythms. Others, like antelope and zebra, thrive in the open grasslands. Predators change too. Large cats evolve for endurance chases in open country. Crocodiles linger in shrinking waterholes, and raptors circle higher, watching for movement. The most dangerous predator remains the one that can wait in silence. You've learnt to read the land like a map of threats. Flattened grass, where lions have lain in wait. Fresh prints at the edge of a waterhole. The sudden hush of bird calls that means something is moving nearby. These skills, scanning, listening, interpreting signs, are as much a part of your survival toolkit as your hands and feet. As the climate swings back and forth, your population moves. Groups follow rivers during dry spells, sometimes traveling hundreds of kilometers over generations. These migrations bring you into contact with other hominin groups. Some look like you, others are stockier, with larger jaws or slightly different gaits. There's curiosity, competition, and perhaps conflict. The fossil record will preserve only hints of these encounters, shared tool use techniques, overlapping ranges. But for you, each meeting is an event to remember. At certain times, resources concentrate in small areas, patches of woodland along a permanent river, for example, and groups are forced into close proximity. Here, social negotiation is critical. Grooming, food sharing, and alliances help prevent constant fighting, but tensions simmer, and a poorly timed move for food can spark a chase or a fight. The changing environment also shapes how you raise your young. Infants are vulnerable for longer now. Upright walking reshaped your pelvis, narrowing the birth canal, so babies are born earlier in development than in quadrupeds. This means more carrying, more protecting, more social cooperation. Others in your group, siblings, older females, even unrelated adults, may help care for young, freeing mothers to forage. This shared parenting will become a hallmark of our lineage, strengthening group bonds and survival chances. Evenings bring a temporary peace. The sun sinks, shadows stretch, and the air cools. You climb into trees or seek shelter among boulders. If you're in a woodland patch, the smell of crushed leaves mixes with the earthy scent of damp soil. You settle into a sleeping nest, sometimes close enough to hear the rhythmic breathing of others. Night is a time of vulnerability, but also of rest, when muscles repair and energy is stored for the next day's search. Over generations, these pressures begin to shape your descendants in subtle but important ways. Brains grow slightly larger, still small by modern standards, but offering more memory and problem-solving capacity. Hands become more dexterous, with a better precision grip. These changes will open the door for something new. The creation of tools not just from found objects, but shaped with intention. Your landscape is full of raw materials, sharp-edged stones in riverbeds, sturdy sticks, hard-shelled seeds. You already use some of them opportunistically, but the environmental unpredictability makes experimentation valuable. If one tool can crack a nut faster, dig a root deeper, or scrape meat more cleanly, it means more food in less time. Even if you don't yet pass these techniques formally to the next generation, young ones watch and imitate. Innovation doesn't spread fast. It's more like a trickle, but it spreads, and then there's fire. You don't control it yet. When lightning strikes a dry tree, the flames roar upward, the heat pushing you back. The smell is sharp and alien. Animals flee. The ground smokes, and later, new shoots will sprout in the charred soil. Sometimes you scavenge near these burn areas, finding roasted seeds or small animals cooked in the blaze. You've learned that fire changes food, but you still fear it. Control will come much later, but the first steps are here. Recognition, observation, and maybe the faint beginning of curiosity about how it might be used. The cycles of wet and dry will continue for millions of years, pushing your kind toward greater adaptability. Each shift is a test, and each adaptation is a gamble. Some traits, like upright walking, will prove invaluable. Others, like extremely specialized teeth for grinding tough plants, will eventually be left behind as diets diversify. You don't know it, but your time is finite. The line you represent will not survive unchanged. Out of the environmental crucible will come new forms, early members of the genus Homo, with bigger brains, better tools, and eventually the ability to shape their environment instead of just adapting to it. But you are the bridge, the necessary chapter that takes us from forest apes to the tool makers who will step beyond Africa. Tonight, as the last light fades and the stars begin to appear, you crouch on a low branch, watching the dark sweep across the plain. You can hear wildebeest calling in the distance, hyenas whooping somewhere far off. The air smells of cooling grass and dust. Your group is close, their shapes barely visible in the dim light. You shift, adjusting the branch under you, and let your breathing slow. Tomorrow will be another test, another day of moving, watching and adjusting to whatever the land decides to give or take. You are living in one of the most dynamic and demanding times in human evolution. You don't know it, but the challenges you face are sculpting the traits that will one day define an entirely new kind of primate, one that will look back at you across millions of years and call you an ancestor. It's between about 2.7 and 1.2 million years ago now, and the African savanna is buzzing, not with electricity, but with life. Tall golden grasses sway in the wind, thorny acacias dot the landscape like green umbrellas, and the air carries a mix of dry dust, warm animal scent, and the faint sweetness of distant blossoms. Herds of grazing animals, zebra, antelope, early forms of wildebeest, move in restless lines across the horizon. Following them, though not in lockstep, are you and your kind, the robust Australopithecines. Your species is well named. If the earlier Australopithecus afarensis was a balanced generalist, you are a specialist tank. Wide cheekbones flare from your face like the supports of a fortress wall. Your jaw is massive, your molars broad and flat, your enamel thick enough to grind through the toughest vegetation. Over your skull rises a sagittal crest, a bony ridge running along the top that anchors jaw muscles, so strong they could crush nuts and seeds like a vise. If a afarensis could handle a varied diet, you've doubled down on the plant side of things. Take Australopithecus, Boise, found in East Africa from about 2.3 to 1.2 million years ago. If you were one of them, your face would look unmistakable. A flat, wide profile, huge zygomatic arches to make room for jaw muscles, and molars the size of bottle caps. The front teeth are small, not much for tearing, but the back teeth are your main tools, grinding down fibrous roots, tough stems, and hard seeds. You'd be able to strip a stalk of sedge or pulverize a nut that would shatter a chimpanzee's tooth. In southern Africa, your close cousin Australopithecus robustus carries the same heavy-duty equipment. Both of you thrive in open woodland and savanna environments, where softer fruits might be scarce during the dry season. Instead of chasing meat, you invest in a fallback strategy. Eat the stuff others can't. Roots, sedges, and seeds aren't glamorous, but they're reliable. Your days are a steady rhythm of foraging. In the cool morning hours, you range along the edges of wetlands, digging into the soil with sticks to pull up tubers. The smell of earth is strong as you shake the dirt off the fibrous mass and bite into it, your jaw working in slow, powerful strokes. By midday, you move towards shaded areas to rest and groom, your body hunched in the dappled light while insects drone overhead. When you come across seed pods or nuts, you pick them up with both hands, turning them over before bringing them to your mouth. Your thick molars and strong jaw muscles make short work of even the toughest shells. You probably don't notice the heat radiating from your chewing muscles. They're used to working all day. Though you're built for plants, you're not strictly vegetarian. Opportunistic scavenging still happens. If you find a carcass stripped by predators, you may crack bones with stones to suck out the marrow. It's not your main food source, but it's a welcome burst of fat and protein. You don't make formal stone tools yet, but you select rocks for their size and shape, sometimes using them repeatedly until they're worn smooth. Your habitat is shared with other hominins, early members of the genus Homo. They look less robust than you, with smaller jaws and teeth, but larger brains. You might encounter them at a waterhole or near a patch of trees. Sometimes there's enough distance to avoid trouble. Other times there's a tense standoff over resources. You're not in direct competition for the same foods most of the time, but water and safe shade are always worth protecting. The dry season tests your design. As grasses wither and fruit disappears, your diet shifts almost entirely to underground storage organs and hard seeds. Your jaw works for hours, breaking down tough cellulose. Your molars bear the marks of this life, heavy wear patterns that will one day tell scientists exactly how you survived. Microscopic scratches and pits on your teeth will reveal a lifetime of chewing gritty foods laced with dust and sand. Predators remain a constant hazard. Lions, sleeker than the ones we know today, stalk in the tall grass. Leopards move silently through the trees, their rosetted coats melting into the shadows. Hyenas with jaws nearly as powerful as yours lope across the plain, ready to drive you off a carcass. You have no natural weapons beyond your strength and your group. If attacked, you shout, wave your arms and grab sticks or stones to throw. Sometimes it's enough, sometimes it isn't. Your robust body comes with trade-offs. You're superb at processing coarse plant matter, but less adaptable than your gracile cousins. If the climate swings too far, if certain plants vanish, you have fewer fallback options. This specialization makes you incredibly efficient in the right environment, but vulnerable when that environment changes. And change is coming. Over the next million years, Africa's climate will continue to pulse between wet and dry cycles. Forests will shrink further, grasslands will dominate, and competition will sharpen. For a while you will thrive, your powerful jaws carrying you through lean seasons when others starve. But in time, the expanding range of Homo species with their flexible diets and advanced tools will erode your niche. Still, in your time, you are successful. Your population ranges widely. A. bosei across East Africa's Rift Valley, A. robustus in South Africa's mixed woodland and grassland. You know your territory intimately, where the water holes are, which trees hold fruit in season, where to find shade at midday. You remember routes, landmarks, and the smell of certain plants that signal food or water nearby. Socially, you live in small, cohesive groups. Grooming is still the primary bond. It calms tension and strengthens alliances. Males and females likely both contribute to fence and foraging, though their roles might differ in ways modern eyes can't fully reconstruct. Young are cared for over several years, riding on their mother's hips, until they can keep pace with the group. Your senses are tuned to survival. Vision is sharp for spotting predators and food sources. Hearing picks up distant movement, a rustle in dry grass, the splash of something entering water. Smell is crucial too. You can detect the musk of a nearby cat, or the earthy scent of ripe tubers underground. These skills, honed over generations, are part instinct, part learned behavior. Evenings are a welcome relief. The air cools, the sun slips below the horizon, and shadows stretch long across the land. You gather with your group near a cluster of trees or rocky outcrop. The young play in short bursts, imitating adult movements, before settling. The older members rest, watching the surroundings as the first stars appear. You don't have fire to ward off predators yet, so safety comes from numbers and vigilance. Your story will end differently from that of the Homo line. By about 1.2 million years ago, A. bosei will vanish from East Africa. A few 100,000 years later, A. bosei will vanish from East Africa. A few 100,000 years later, A. bosei will disappear from the south. The reasons will be a mix of climate change, competition, and the limits of specialization. Your heavy jaws and enormous molars, once your greatest strength, will become liabilities as environments shift and food sources change. But your legacy isn't just an extinction. It's in the lesson you leave behind. You show that there are multiple ways to be a hominin. You prove that survival can come from brute strength and dietary specialization, just as much as from brain power and tools. And for over 1 million years, you thrive in your own way, side by side with our direct ancestors. Tonight, under a sky thick with stars, you settle into a shallow depression near the roots of a large acacia. The ground is warm from the day's sun, and the air smells faintly of dust and crushed leaves. Your group is close, their shapes merging with the shadows. Somewhere in the distance, a hyena laughs, a sharp, rising cackle. You glance up at the silhouettes of branches against the night sky, then close your eyes. Tomorrow will be another day of chewing, digging, and moving across the land. that has shaped you so completely. You don't know it, but in the far future, your skull will sit in a glass case in a museum, its crest and jaw silently telling the story of a time when strength and endurance were the keys to survival, and somewhere, a person will stand in front of it, looking into the hollow eyes, and see in you a part of themselves they didn't know was there. It's roughly 2.6 million years ago now, and you're standing at the edge of a shallow river in East Africa, staring at a stone in your hand. It's heavy, fits comfortably against your palm, and has an edge that feels sharp enough to bite into the fibers of a plant or the skin of an animal. This is the beginning of something entirely new. The first stone tools. The species most associated with this leap is Homo habilis, handyman, and whether you're one of them or a late Australopithecus, experimenting with stones, the ground has shifted beneath the course of human evolution. The air is warm, the smell of mud and wet grass rising from the riverbank. In the shallows, a few crocodiles drift lazily, their eyes barely above the water. The far bank is dotted with acacia trees, and beyond them, grasslands stretch until they blur into a shimmering horizon. Herds of grazing animals graze in the distance, their heads lifting occasionally to scan for danger. Predators are out there too, but today your focus is closer to hand. You squat by the river and set the stone on a larger, flatter rock. You raise another stone, this one rounder, smoother, and strike. The crack is sharp, the vibration running up your arm. A flake of stone shears off, revealing a fresh, jagged edge. You turn it in your hand, test the edge against a length of fibrous root, and nod in satisfaction. This is the Oldowan tool industry, the earliest known stone tool tradition, lasting for over 1 million years. It's simple by modern standards. Flakes, choppers, scrapers, but each tool represents planning, choice of material, and knowledge of how force and angle can transform a rock into a cutting edge. With this edge, you can slice meat from a scavenged carcass, cut through plant stalks, scrape hides, and even split tough fruit shells. The tools aren't just found objects, they're made. That's a leap in cognition, seeing an object not for what it is, but for what it could be. Your hands are changing to make this possible. Compared to earlier hominins, your thumb is longer, your grip stronger and more precise. You can press an object against your palm and hold it steady while manipulating it with your other hand. The muscles in your forearms and fingers are tuned for control, not just strength. These changes are gradual, layered over generations, but they open doors no other primate has walked through. Tool making also shifts your diet. You're no longer limited to what your teeth can bite through or your nails can tear. With sharp flakes, you can cut into carcasses soon after predators abandon them, stripping away muscle and slicing tendons to free the long bones. Then, with a heavier hammerstone, you crack the bones open to scoop out the marrow, a rich, fatty food source dense with calories your growing brain craves. And that brain is indeed growing. In Homo habilis, the cranial capacity ranges from about 510 to 600 cubic centimeters, a jump from Australopithecus's average. It's still far smaller than a modern human's, but the expansion allows more complex problem solving, memory, and coordination. You're not just reacting to the environment, you're anticipating it. You can recall where the best stones are found, which carcasses are worth approaching, and when predators are likely to return. Living with tools changes social life too. Knowledge is now something that can be shared. Younger members watch you strike flakes from a core and mimic the movement. Some fail, some succeed, but the skill spreads. The ability to copy and teach, intentionally or not, becomes a quiet engine of cultural transmission. It's not culture in the way we think of it yet, but it's the root of it. Your environment remains a mosaic of grassland, woodland, and river corridors. Climate fluctuations still push and pull the edges of these zones, forcing you to move when resources change. With tools, your range expands. You can process foods that would have been inaccessible before, and that means you can survive in a wider variety of habitats. When water is scarce, you dig into the beds of dry streams for hidden moisture. When meat is scarce, you use flakes to dig for roots or strip bark for inner layers. Predators still rule the land. Lions, leopards, saber-toothed cats, they all know a carcass draws competition. You must time your scavenging carefully. If you approach too soon, you risk being attacked. Too late, and the meat is gone. Your tools make you bolder, but not reckless. Sometimes you'll work in pairs, one cutting, one watching. The air around a kill site is thick with the smell of blood and fear. The skin under your fingers is warm, the sinew taut as you pull your flake through it. Flies gather fast. Stone tools aren't the only innovation here. You're also beginning to alter the way you think about space. The best tool-making stones aren't found everywhere. Some types like fine-grained basalt or quartzite might be kilometers away from your home range. Carrying raw materials means thinking ahead, predicting when and where you'll need them. This foresight marks another step toward the complex planning that will one day let your descendants navigate oceans and deserts. In some places, you leave behind clusters of tools and bones. Archaeologists of the future will call them butchery sites. These places tell the story of your day, selecting stones, shaping them, cutting meat, cracking bones. The scatter of flakes shows where you knelt, where a companion stood, where the remains of your work lay until scavengers or time carried them away. Your group is still small, maybe a dozen individuals. Bonds are strong, reinforced by grooming, food sharing, and cooperation in foraging. There's no formal hierarchy in the human sense, but dominance exists. Certain individuals control access to food or mates more than others. Disputes are settled through displays of strength, vocalizations, and sometimes physical contact, but cooperation is just as important. A lone toolmaker won't last long on the savannah. The group can watch each other's backs while feeding. The young are curious, constantly reaching for objects, testing them in their mouths, banging them against the ground. You're patient, or at least tolerant, because every skill they practice is an investment in the group's future. Some young will remember how to make a flake from a core after seeing it only a few times. Others will need to watch over and over. In this way, knowledge trickles forward through generations. There's no fire under your control yet. Not really, but you notice it. A lightning strike in the dry season can send flames racing through the grass, filling the air with a choking haze. Afterward, you sometimes find small animals roasted in place, their smell drawing you closer. You eat them, learning by accident, that cooking changes texture and taste. It's another seed planted for a revolution that won't bloom for hundreds of thousands of years. As the centuries pass, the Oldowan tradition spreads across Africa. You carry it with you in your mind and your hands, adapting it to new environments. In some areas, river pebbles make the best choppers. In others, volcanic rock holds a sharper edge. The design stays simple, but the skill is ingrained. It becomes part of what it means to be your species. The presence of tools also changes how others see you. Predators learn to be cautious around you. Scavengers may keep their distance. You're not physically stronger than a leopard, not faster than a zebra, but with a flake of stone, you can cut deeper, reach marrow faster, and defend yourself with more than just your bare hands. Evenings on the savannah are quieter now, though danger is never far. You sit with your group near a stand of trees, a few stones still warm from your hands, lying on the ground beside you. The sun bleeds red across the horizon, shadows lengthening into the grass. The air smells of dust and the faint metallic tang of worked stone. Somewhere far off, a hyena calls, answered by another. You rest your hands in your lap, feeling the faint sting from where the sharp edges scraped your skin earlier. You don't know it, but you've taken a step that will echo for the rest of human history. The moment you struck that first flake from a stone, you began rewriting the rules of survival. The savanna hasn't changed. It's still full of predators, still governed by the same harsh cycles of rain and drought. But now you carry something in your mind and your grip that no other creature here does, the ability to shape the world in your favor, one sharp edge at a time. It's between about 2 million and 1.5 million years ago now, and you're standing in the dry, shimmering heat of the East African Rift Valley. The landscape stretches wide and open, rolling grasslands broken by scattered acacias and thorn bushes, with the occasional ribbon of green marking a seasonal river. The sky feels bigger here, the horizon so far you can almost see the curve of the earth. You're an early member of Homo erectus's ancestors, perhaps late Homo habilis, perhaps an early Homo ergaster, and something inside your skull has shifted. Your brain is larger than any hominin before you, averaging around 800–900 cubic centimeters. But it's not just the size that matters, it's what you can do with it. The air smells faintly metallic from the dry soil and the occasional scent of distant rain carried by the wind. Somewhere out on the plain, zebra are braying, and the low, steady drumming of wildebeest hooves comes and goes with the breeze. You and your group are on the move, not wandering aimlessly, but with a plan, heading toward a waterhole you visited weeks ago, where you know herds often pass, and predators sometimes leave scraps behind. Your brain allows you to map, not just space, but time. You can remember where a herd tends to graze after the rains, where fruit trees bear in the late season, where predators usually rest during midday heat. You can anticipate events before they happen, an ability that changes everything about how you survive. It's also changing how you cooperate. You work in more coordinated ways now, especially when hunting and scavenging. While you're still opportunistic, you're beginning to use group tactics. Some members move ahead to distract or flush an animal, while others wait in ambush or approach from another direction. It's not yet the organized drive hunts of much later humans, but it's enough to give you an edge. Diet is more varied now than in any hominin before you. Stone tools are better shaped, flakes are sharper, cores are more carefully struck, and you use them for a wider range of tasks. Meat is an increasingly important part of your calories. You scavenge it, yes, but you're also beginning to hunt smaller animals outright. Hares, young antelope, birds. The protein and fat feed your growing brain, and over generations that brain fuels further innovations. You're also getting better at processing plants. Roots and tubers that once took half an hour of chewing can now be chopped or pounded with stones before eating. You crack nuts more efficiently. You strip bark to reach the softer layers beneath. Every improvement in food processing means you can get more energy for less work, freeing time for other activities. Your group life is changing too. Larger brains demand more social interaction to keep the group cohesive. Grooming is still central, but now there's more vocal communication. You've developed a richer repertoire of calls, maybe even proto-words, a consistent sound for vulture, another for water, perhaps one for come here or danger. These aren't full sentences, but they add a new layer to cooperation. And cooperation is essential, because your new strategies sometimes put you in more danger. Approaching a predator's kill to steal meat requires nerve and numbers. You watch the vultures wheel overhead, nature's signal for food, and move toward the site cautiously, keeping an eye out for the predator that made the kill. If it's gone, you work fast, slicing meat into strips, cracking bones for marrow. If it's still there, you might shout, wave your arms, and throw stones to drive it off. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you have to retreat. Another change is happening quietly in the background. Endurance. You're becoming a better long-distance walker and even runner. Your legs are longer, your body more slender, your sweat glands more numerous. You can keep moving in the midday heat when many predators must rest in the shade. This gives you a unique hunting advantage, what modern scientists will call persistence hunting. You can follow an animal for hours, tracking it until it overheats and collapses from exhaustion. It's dangerous and exhausting, but the payoff is fresh meat without having to fight tooth and claw. Your endurance also helps in migration. Groups like yours are beginning to range further from the African heartlands, exploring new territories. You follow rivers into unfamiliar valleys, skirt the edges of deserts, and cross wooded highlands. Each new area presents new foods, new predators, and new materials for tools. Some groups will push far enough to leave Africa entirely, marking the first great dispersal of our lineage. Around the fire, well, near the fire, because you're not yet in full control of it. You've begun to spend more time together in the evenings. Sometimes you approach a smouldering tree after a lightning strike. Curious about the warmth and light, you might carry a burning branch for a short distance, using it to scare predators or keep insects away, but you can't yet make fire at will. Still, you're learning heat changes the taste and texture of food, and the light extends your active hours. It will be many thousands of generations before fire becomes a permanent companion, but the fascination is already here. Conflict still happens. Bigger brains don't erase competition, they sharpen it. Disputes over food or mates can turn violent, but you're also more skilled at avoiding fights when possible, using vocalizations, gestures, or submissive postures to diffuse tension. That flexibility makes your group more stable, and stability makes you more effective at survival. You've also begun to store knowledge across the group. One member knows the location of a certain water source. Another remembers where the sharpest stones are found. Another is the best at spotting signs of predators. No single individual holds all the skills or information, but together the group becomes a kind of shared brain, a network of experience and memory. Your place in the ecosystem is shifting. You're still prey for many predators, but you're also becoming a competitor, even a threat, in ways earlier hominins never were. A leopard might think twice about attacking a group armed with stones and sticks. Hyenas may find you chasing them from a carcass. You're not dominant yet, not in the way later humans will be, but you're starting to punch above your weight. The children in your group are raised with more social input than before. Older siblings, aunts, and unrelated group members help carry, feed, and protect them. This parenting means mothers can recover faster and have more offspring over their lifetimes. And it strengthens group bonds. It also gives the young more opportunities to watch and learn from multiple role models, speeding up the spread of skills. When you move across the landscape, you leave more than footprints now. You leave clues, flaked stones, butchered bones, cracked shells. These are the breadcrumbs of your expanding mind, the signs that you're not just living in your environment, but altering it. Future scientists will read them like a diary. Here is where you camped. Here is where you butchered an antelope. Here is where you dropped a broken tool. Evening falls over the Rift Valley, and the sky turns deep gold before fading to violet. You sit on a low rise, the ground still warm beneath you. The air smells faintly of dust and animal dung. Somewhere out there, you hear the distant, rhythmic whoop of hyenas and the low roar of a lion. You grip a stone in your hand, running your thumb along its sharp edge. You're not the fastest, not the strongest, not the most heavily armed predator out here. But you're building something no other animal has, a way of surviving that relies not just on muscle but on memory, planning, and cooperation. Your brain hums with the map of the land, the movements of prey, the habits of predators. And as you rise to join your group, the stars blinking into view above you, you take those maps, that memory, that cooperation with you into the dark, carrying them forward, step by step, into the deep future where they will become the foundation of what it means to be human. It's about 1.9 million years ago, and you are no longer Homo habilis. You are Homo erectus, or here in Africa, often called Homo ergaster. You're taller than any hominin that came before you, with a lean, long-limbed body, built for distance and endurance. You can walk for hours without tiring, and when the situation calls for it, you can run not in short bursts like a predator, but in a steady, relentless pursuit that few animals can match. Your brain is larger too, averaging 900 cubic centimeters or more, and your skull shape is distinct, long and low, with a pronounced brow ridge and a jaw strong enough to handle both raw meat and tough plants. The air this morning is cool, carrying the scent of damp soil from the night's dew. Your group is on the move before sunrise, heading toward a valley where you know a river runs year-round. You've made this trip before, many times, and you remember the route, not just in vague impressions but in an ordered sequence of landmarks. A cluster of baobab trees, a rocky outcrop that looks like the head of a giant animal, a narrow gully where the air smells faintly of clay. This mental map is part of what makes your species different. You're no longer reacting to the landscape as you stumble into it. You're anticipating it, moving through it with intention. And that intention is beginning to reach far beyond Africa. Some of your relatives have already walked out of this continent, following the green corridors of rivers and lakes, skirting deserts, crossing into the Middle East, Asia, and eventually into Indonesia and Europe. Their footprints, literal and cultural, will stretch across half the planet, making Homo erectus the first hominin to inhabit such a vast range. You are no longer a local creature. You are becoming a global one. The reasons for this expansion are written in your body and your behavior. Your long legs and narrow hips make you efficient over long distances. Your sweat glands, more numerous than those of almost any other animal, allow you to cool yourself while moving in heat that would force other predators to rest. Your group's ability to share knowledge means you can learn about new foods, water sources, and hazards more quickly, and your tool-making skills are evolving into something more advanced than the old dough and flakes of your ancestors. This is the dawn of the Acheulean tool tradition. It begins around 1.76 million years ago, and you're one of the makers. You select large, flat stones, quartzite, basalt, flint, and carefully strike them into symmetrical shapes. Hand axes, cleavers, picks. These tools are longer lasting and more versatile than the simple choppers and flakes of the past. A hand axe is your multi-purpose survival kit. It can butcher an animal, dig up roots, split wood, scrape hides. You keep it with you for weeks, even months, repairing and resharpening it when needed. Making one is a deliberate act. You don't just strike at random. You visualize the shape in the stone before you begin, removing flakes in a controlled sequence until the edges are sharp and the form balanced in your hand. This is more than skill. It's abstract thinking, the ability to imagine an end result and then work systematically to achieve it. Your diet reflects your growing adaptability. You eat a wide range of foods: meat from hunted or scavenged animals, fish caught in shallow streams, nuts and seeds cracked open with hammerstones, fruits gathered from the edge of woodlands, roots dug from the ground. Cooking hasn't yet become part of your life, at least not regularly, but your jaw and teeth are still well suited to raw fare. The inclusion of more meat means more calories, especially fats and proteins that feed your brain. Over many generations, this steady energy supply will allow further brain growth. Hunting is more organized now. In open grasslands, your group may coordinate to corner smaller animals, using persistence running to exhaust them. In wooded areas, you might use stealth to get close before throwing rocks or sticks to slow your prey. You are still vulnerable to large predators: lions, saber-toothed cats, giant hyenas, but you are no longer simply avoiding them. Sometimes you challenge them directly, driving them from a fresh kill with a combination of noise, numbers, and weapons. Social life is changing as well. Groups are larger, sometimes over 20 individuals. This means more eyes to watch for danger, more hands to carry food, more brains to remember resources. But it also means more potential for conflict. You resolve disputes through a mix of vocalizations, gestures, and physical displays. And while violence happens, it is costly enough that you often avoid it. Cooperation remains the core of survival, especially on long migrations. You have no permanent shelters yet, but you use the landscape strategically. Overhangs, caves, clusters of trees, they all become temporary camps. Near water sources, you may stay for days or weeks, leaving behind a scatter of stone tools and animal bones. Some sites even show signs that tools were made and maintained there, suggesting a degree of planning and perhaps even a sense of home base. And then there is fire. You are not yet its master, but you are beginning to keep it. In some places, you gather burning branches from natural fires and feed them with dry grass and sticks, keeping the flames alive for hours or even days. Fire changes the night. Its light pushes back the dark, its heat keeps the chill away, and its smoke drives off biting insects. Predators are more hesitant to approach a glowing camp. Occasionally, you drop meat or tubers into the embers, discovering that cooked food is softer, easier to chew, and tastes different better. This taste will linger in your descendants' minds until, hundreds of thousands of years later, they learn to make fire at will. Your migrations take you into landscapes no hominin has seen before. In some places, you walk along coastlines where the air is salty and seabirds wheel overhead, scavenging shellfish from tidal pools. In others, you cross open steppe under a pale sky, following herds of wild horses and antelope. You pass through mountain passes where snow lingers even in summer, learning to huddle together for warmth at night. Each new environment demands adaptation, different prey, different plant foods, different predators, but your species is flexible enough to meet these challenges. Language is still far from what it will one day be, but your communication is richer than before. You can combine calls with gestures to create more specific messages. Not just danger, but danger from that direction. Not just food, but food near the water. This richer exchange allows for more complex cooperation in hunting, foraging, and defending against threats. One of the most remarkable things about your kind is endurance. Not just physical, but generational. Migrations that seem vast to an individual, hundreds of kilometers, are small steps in the species' journey. Over thousands of years, groups move, split, settle, move again. This slow but steady expansion will eventually carry Homo erectus from Africa to as far as Java, in Indonesia, adapting to climates from tropical forest to temperate grasslands. Predators learn to recognize you, not as easy prey, but as a dangerous competitor. A lion may think twice about approaching a group of tall, loud hominins, brandishing stones and spears. Even if you lose the confrontation, you've sent a message. You are no longer just part of the prey base. You are something new in this ecosystem. A hunter who can also be hunted, a scavenger who can also defend a kill. As the sun dips low in the sky one evening, you and your group reach a ridge overlooking a river valley. The air is cooler now, carrying the scent of water and the faint musk of animals that have come to drink. Below, you can see the shimmer of the river in the fading light, the silhouettes of giraffes moving slowly through the trees. You set down your hand axe, its edge still sharp from a recent resharpening, and sit with your legs folded beneath you. Around you, others are resting, grooming, or quietly watching the horizon. Somewhere in the distance, a faint column of smoke marks the site of a grass fire, its glow flickering against the darkening sky. You're far enough that it poses no threat, but you feel the pull of its light all the same. The night will be long, but you're not afraid. You have tools in your hands, a map in your mind, and a group at your side. You don't know it, but you're part of a lineage that will span continents, outlast species, and lay the groundwork for every leap in human history to come. And here, at the edge of the river valley, as the first stars emerge, you take another step forward, one in a journey that will not end for nearly 2 million years. It's about 1 million years ago now, and something is different in the night. There is a glow, steady, warm, and unlike the fleeting blaze of a grass fire. You're part of a Homo erectus group, somewhere in the Great Rift Valley, and you are among the first to tame fire. You didn't create it from scratch. Lightning likely set a tree ablaze days ago, but you've carried embers back to camp, feeding them carefully with dry grass and twigs. For the first time, light and heat are not just accidents of nature. They are something you can keep. The air near the fire is thick with smoke, carrying a sharp, resinous scent from the acacia wood. The ground around it is warm, dry, and free of biting insects. Beyond the ring of light, the darkness feels deeper, the noise is sharper. A hyena's call floats across the plain, but it keeps its distance. You've created a new kind of boundary, a circle of safety. The uses of fire unfold quickly once it is yours to keep. You huddle near it at night to ward off the cold, especially during the dry season when the air grows thin and chilly after sunset. You throw damp wood on the flames to make smoke that drives away mosquitoes. You experiment, intentionally or by accident, with food. A piece of meat dropped into the coals comes out softer, easier to chew, and far less likely to make you sick. Tubers roasted in embers lose their bitterness. Even seeds and nuts seem easier to crack after a brief heating. This is not yet the full mastery of fire. You can't start it whenever you like, but the practice of maintaining it is changing everything. Nights grow longer in more temperate regions, and fire lets you extend your waking hours. Around its glow, the group gathers. Grooming still happens, but more time is spent in vocalizing, gesturing, and sharing food. The flickering light illuminates faces in ways daylight never has, drawing attention to expressions and movements. Communication, still far from language, grows more nuanced. Fire also changes the landscape of fear. Before, darkness meant retreat to a tree, a cave, or some other defensive position. Now you can choose to stay in the open, your firelight visible for dozens of meters. Predators may still stalk nearby, but many hesitate to cross that shimmering barrier of heat and light. This gives you the freedom to camp where resources are best, not just where shelter is strongest. Your tools are improving alongside your control of fire. Equally hand axes are sharper and more symmetrical than ever, some so finely made they seem almost excessive for their purpose, suggesting a growing aesthetic sense or perhaps social signaling. These tools are not only functional but durable, carried for weeks and repaired with skill. You use them to butcher meat, split wood for the fire, and dig into termite mounds for protein-rich larvae. Hunting has also evolved. Persistence hunting remains a core strategy, but now fire is sometimes part of the plan. You've learnt to use it to flush animals from cover. Dry grass, set alight in a controlled way, can send smaller prey running into waiting hunters. It's risky, requiring coordination to keep the blaze contained, but the payoff is significant. Meat is becoming a central part of your diet, supplementing the plants, fruits, and roots that still make up a large portion of your calories. The protein and fat help fuel your brain, which in Homo erectus can reach over 1,000 cubic centimeters in size. This is a brain capable of more complex planning, social organization, and environmental manipulation than anything in the hominin world before it. Your range continues to expand. Homo erectus is now in Africa, the Middle East, much of Asia, and parts of Europe. Each region offers new challenges: colder winters in the north, tropical diseases in the south, monsoon rains in the east. Fire helps in all of them. Warmth in the cold, smoke against insects, the ability to dry wet gear and fuel. The species' adaptability is unmatched. In colder regions, fire may be kept burning for months at a time, passed from one group to another when needed. In wetter climates, finding dry fuel becomes a skill in itself. In all places, the ability to choose camp locations based on strategy rather than sheer necessity allows for more efficient foraging and hunting. Fire also begins to reshape your relationship with food beyond taste and safety. Cooking makes calories more accessible. Roasted meat is easier to digest. Roasted tubers release more sugars. Seeds crack open more easily. This means more energy and less time, an advantage that will ripple forward through generations, feeding the demands of ever larger brains. The evening fire becomes a hub for social life. Here, children are kept safe from wandering predators while adults prepare food and rest. Stories, though not yet in words as we know them, begin to take form through gestures, sounds, and reenactments. You might pantomime the chase of an antelope, the throw of a rock, the leap of a predator. Others watch, respond, and sometimes mimic you, creating a shared memory of events. Your sense of time is also deepening. You can plan not just for tomorrow, but for days ahead, keeping embers alive for a planned hunt, choosing fuel in advance, delaying travel to take advantage of resources near camp. This long-view thinking is tied to both fire and food storage. While you still consume most of what you gather each day, cooked food lasts longer than raw, giving you more flexibility in when and where you eat. Fire changes your body too. Over generations, reliance on cooking will lead to smaller teeth and jaws, less massive chewing muscles, and changes in digestive systems. You don't know it yet, but you are setting in motion a biological feedback loop. Fire changes your diet changes your body, and that body is even better suited to living with fire. You still face dangers, of course. Fire is not an absolute shield. Predators sometimes test the edge of its light, their eyes flashing briefly before vanishing into the dark. Sparks can ignite dry grass if left untended, forcing you to move quickly to avoid being trapped, and fire itself demands constant maintenance. Neglect it for too long, and it dies, leaving you vulnerable again. Yet the benefits outweigh the risks. Your nights are warmer, your food safer, your predators warier. You've taken a step that will eventually lead to entire landscapes reshaped by controlled burning, to hearths at the center of human homes, to metallurgy, to the engines that will one day carry your descendants across the globe. One evening, after a day of foraging along the river, you return to camp, carrying a bundle of dry branches. The fire is low, just glowing embers in the ash. You crouch, add the branches, and blow gently until the flames leap back to life. The group gathers instinctively, faces flicker in the orange light, eyes catching the fire's reflection. Meat is passed around, some of it charred, some still sizzling from the heat. There's a moment where you simply watch the flames. They move like water, but burn instead of cool. The heat against your skin feels alive, almost like a second sun you can summon when the real one has gone. It's not magic. It's something better. It's control. From this point forward, fire will be part of your story forever. You've not yet mastered making it from nothing. That leap is still far in the future. But the knowledge of how to keep it alive is firmly planted in your mind and your culture, and in the quiet moments before sleep, when the coals glow low and the night is calm, you can feel the shape of a new kind of power, the ability to change your environment to suit you, rather than only changing yourself to suit the environment. That change, more than anything else, is what will define the path ahead. It's between about 800,000 and 400,000 years ago now, and you're part of a lineage that has spread far beyond the warm cradle of Africa. The days of being confined to a single environment are long gone. You, whether in Africa, Eurasia, or Southeast Asia, are a master of adaptation. The world is ending a pattern of ice ages and interglacial periods, swinging between colder, drier climates and warmer, wetter intervals. You're not just surviving in these shifts, you're bending to them, molding your life to match the demands of each new landscape. In Africa, savannas stretch wide under hot sun, broken by rivers and seasonal wetlands. In Europe and northern Asia, ice sheets grow and retreat like slow-moving tides. During the coldest periods, open steppe and tundra dominate. Winds whip across the land, and winters bite hard. In Southeast Asia, tropical forests hum with insect life, and monsoon rains turn trails into rivers. You and your kin live in all of these places, each group carrying its own toolkit, hunting methods, and survival strategy. Your body is built for movement through varied terrain. In warmer regions, your limbs are long, your build lean, efficient for dissipating heat. In colder climates, some populations develop stockier frames that conserve warmth. Clothing, in the modern sense, doesn't exist yet, but in colder places you may drape yourself in animal hides for insulation, fastening them with thorns or sinew. These coverings are crude but life-saving during icy winds. Fire is no longer just borrowed. It's increasingly kept through skillful maintenance. You select sheltered sites where wind can't snuff it out, stockpiling dry wood, grasses and bark. When your group travels, someone carries embers in a hollowed piece of wood or inside a bundle of dry plant material, glowing quietly until you're ready to coax them into flames again. In colder environments, the fire is your lifeline, the hearth a permanent fixture of your camp. Your tools have evolved too. The Acheulean tradition continues, but now there's more variety and specialization. In some regions, you create elongated hand axes with finely worked edges, flake tools for scraping hides, heavy-duty choppers for breaking bone. In others, you make smaller, sharper flakes, suited for delicate work. This flexibility in tool design is key to thriving in diverse habitats. If you live near rivers, your toolkit might include pointed implements for spearing fish. In forested areas, heavier tools for cutting wood. The process of making these tools is deliberate, almost ritualistic. You know where to find the best stone, how to strike it at just the right angle to shape the edge. You pass these skills along, not through spoken instruction as modern humans do, but by demonstration, letting younger members watch and imitate, correcting them with gestures or grunts. The knowledge flows across generations, weaving continuity into your culture. Your diet changes with the land. In Africa, you hunt antelope and warthogs, gather tubers, crack nuts, and strip bark. In colder climates, you hunt reindeer, wild horses, even young mammoths, and store meat in cool places to last through lean months. In tropical forests, you gather fruits, roots and small game, supplementing with fish and shellfish when possible. This adaptability means that while other species rise and fall with environmental change, you remain. Hunting is more cooperative now. You don't just happen upon prey, you plan for it. You may drive animals toward waiting hunters, use natural barriers like cliffs or rivers to trap them, or coordinate to surround smaller herds. Persistent hunting still works in hot open environments, but in colder or forested areas, stealth and sudden attack are more effective. The ability to adapt isn't just physical, it's mental. You can learn entirely new survival strategies within your lifetime. If your group moves into a colder region, you may quickly adopt hide coverings, shelter construction, and seasonal movement patterns that fit the new conditions. You pay attention to the habits of animals, the cycles of plants, the way weather shifts before a storm. The environment is no longer just something you endure. It's something you read and respond to like a living map. And the map is vast. Your migrations stretch thousands of kilometers over generations. In some cases, groups split. One remains in the familiar homeland, the other pushes into unknown territory. Over time, these separated populations begin to look and behave slightly differently, shaped by their new environments. This variation will one day be a clue to scientists, evidence of how widely your species roamed and how flexibly it lived. Shelters are more deliberate now. In forests, you may build simple windbreaks from branches and leaves. In open plains, you nestle against rock outcrops or arrange stones into low walls to block the wind. In colder regions, caves become prized. Stable temperatures, protection from snow, and defensible entrances. Inside these shelters, the fire burns steadily, casting flickering shadows against the stone walls, marking the first faint beginnings of indoor life. Your nights are quieter than those of earlier hominins. The fire keeps many predators at bay, and you sleep on ground you've cleared of rocks and debris, sometimes padded with grass or leaves. You still wake, often. Danger is never gone, but the combination of fire, shelter, and group vigilance makes night less a time of fear and more a time of rest. In colder regions, the challenges are greater. Winters shorten the daylight hours, food is scarcer, and water freezes. Hunting larger animals becomes essential. Because one kill can feed the group for days, you learn to follow herds across the steppe, reading their tracks in snow and mud. You may store meat in frozen ground or cold caves, returning to it when needed. Clothing made from animal hides becomes thicker, sometimes layered. These are not tailored garments, but simple wrappings tied around the body, enough to cut the wind and keep warmth close. In tropical regions, the challenge is different. Heavy rains, dense vegetation, and abundant but sometimes dangerous wildlife. You navigate through thick forest by memory and sight lines to tall trees, avoid snakes and crocodiles near rivers, and adapt to seasonal fruiting patterns. Your diet here is more plant-heavy, but still supported by protein from small animals, birds, and fish. Your relationship with other hominins is complex. In some areas, you may encounter groups that look and act much like your own. Sometimes these meetings are peaceful, with exchanges of mates or knowledge. Sometimes they're hostile, ending in competition for resources. Over time, isolation and adaptation will cause these groups to diverge into distinct lineages, some of which, like the Neanderthals, will one day be your close cousins. The land changes faster than you do, but your adaptability keeps pace. Glacial periods expand deserts and ice sheets, forcing migrations south. Interglacials bring forests and lakes back, drawing you into new hunting and foraging grounds. You carry your knowledge with you, which stones make the sharpest blades, which plants soothe a wound, which animals are most dangerous to approach. Evenings in your camp, whether in a cold cave or under a tropical canopy, follow a familiar rhythm. The fire is fed until it blazes high enough to cook meat or roast tubers. The group gathers close, sharing food, grooming, resting. Sparks rise into the night like brief stars. Children doze against their mothers or play with bits of bone and wood. Older members watch the darkness beyond the firelight, alert for movement. There is no formal language, but your gestures and sounds are rich with meaning. A hand motion toward the hills signals a hunt tomorrow. A sharp vocal call sends everyone scrambling for weapons. A low, repetitive hum might calm a restless child or signal contentment. The night sky changes depending on where you are in the world. Near the equator, the constellations wheel overhead in familiar arcs. Farther north, the seasons bring longer nights, and the stars seem to hang in the cold air for hours. You don't map them or name them, but you notice their patterns, just as you notice the shape of the land and the signs of animals. When you sleep, it's with the confidence that tomorrow you can meet whatever the day brings. Heat or frost, forest or grassland, plenty or scarcity. You've learnt to bend your life to the shape of the land, to read its signals and change with its moods. This is the heart of your success, the ability to adapt without losing the core of who you are. In the millennia to come, this adaptability will prepare your descendants for even greater challenges. Ice ages deeper than any you've seen, migrations farther than any you've made, and the rise of entirely new ways of living. But here in this moment, as the fire's warmth soaks into your skin and the night wind slides past your shelter, you've already proven the most important point. No matter how the world changes, you can change with it. It's around 600,000 to 300,000 years ago, and you are no longer Homo erectus. You are part of a new phase, archaic Homo sapiens, sometimes called Homo heidelbergensis in Africa and Europe, or Homo rhodesiensis in parts of Africa. Your body is taller and more heavily built than earlier humans, with a brain averaging around 1,200 cubic centimeters, nearly as large as that of modern humans. Your brow ridge is still pronounced, your skull long and low, but your face is pulling forward towards something we would recognize as human. You live in a world of extremes. The Pleistocene climate cycles are now fully entrenched, deep glaciations followed by warmer interglacial periods, each lasting tens of thousands of years. In one generation, your homeland might be a fertile grassland. In the next, it could be a frozen steppe. You are a master of endurance, able to survive in temperate forests, open savannas, and even the edge of glacial landscapes. Your toolkits show a clear leap forward. The Aeculian tradition is still alive, but you're also experimenting with new techniques, prepared core methods, like the Levallois technique. You shape a stone core carefully so that a single strike will remove a flake of predetermined size and shape. These flakes are sharper and more efficient than the old bulky tools, and they can be turned into spear tips, scrapers, or knives. You're not just making tools to use, you're making tools with specific goals in mind. That means you're thinking ahead, visualizing the final product, and understanding the sequence of steps to get there. The complexity of this process hints at another change: more advanced communication. It's hard to pass on such skill without some shared understanding of sequence and purpose, whether through demonstration, gesture, or vocal sounds approaching a proto-language. Hunting has reached a new level of organization. Spears, long wooden shafts tipped with sharpened stone, are your primary weapons. Some are used for thrusting at close range, others are designed for throwing. With these you can take down large game in coordinated group hunts. Imagine a winter scene in Europe. You and a dozen others crouched in the snow along a game trail, your breath steaming in the frigid air. Ahead, a line of deer moves cautiously, their hooves crunching ice. At a signal, a sharp hand movement, you rise as one, shouting to drive them toward a narrow pass, where more hunters wait. Spears fly, the air filled with the thump of impacts and the cries of startled animals. The kill will feed the group for weeks, with meat dried or frozen for storage. In Africa, the hunt might look different, tracking antelope across open savanna, using persistence running in the heat of the day to drive them to exhaustion before moving in for the kill. In both cases, cooperation is key. A lone hunter might bring down small prey, but only a group can reliably secure the large animals that make survival in harsh climates possible. Your shelters are more substantial now. In cold regions, you may build windbreaks from mammoth bones and hides, or use caves extensively. In warmer climates, branch and leaf structures provide shade and protection from rain. Wherever you live, the hearth is central. Fire is no longer a rare prize, but a constant companion, made and maintained by skill. You can start it now, though the methods vary. Some use friction, rubbing wood until it smoulders. Others strike certain stones together to produce sparks. Once lit, the fire becomes the heart of camp life. Cooking food, providing warmth, drying hides, and serving as a gathering point for social interaction. The mastery of fire has widened your range dramatically. Even cold, windswept plains are now habitable with the right shelter and a steady flame. Cooking has transformed your diet. Roasting meat makes it safer and easier to chew. Boiling roots softens their fibers and releases more nutrients. You've learned to cook in pits lined with hot stones, to roast seeds in embers, and to smoke meat for preservation. These techniques mean you can store food for days or even weeks, reducing the daily pressure to hunt. Stored food also supports larger groups, since there's more stability in supply. Larger groups in turn require more social coordination. Conflicts must be managed, resources shared, and roles divided. Some members specialize in toolmaking, others in hunting, others in processing hides or gathering plants. You're still far from the structured societies of modern humans, but division of labor is emerging. You are also starting to alter your surroundings deliberately. Hides are stretched and scraped into coverings. Bones are carved into awls and points. Shelters are built with more permanence. In some places, you dig storage pits to keep food or materials safe from scavengers. You're shaping the land, not just using it as you find it. This period may also see the beginnings of symbolic thought. A few finds from your time suggest you occasionally use pigments, ochre scraped and ground, perhaps to decorate bodies or objects. These traces are rare, but they hint that you may already be thinking in ways not strictly tied to survival, expressing identity, marking events, or signaling group membership. Your brain's increased capacity allows for deeper memory and planning. You remember the seasonal movements of herds, the locations of flint outcrops, the taste of certain plants that grow only in one valley. You can plan hunts weeks in advance, prepare tools in anticipation, and coordinate movement across long distances. This mental flexibility is one of your greatest strengths. It allows you to adapt to each environment, not just physically but mentally. Your range is now vast, from southern Africa's grasslands to the cold river valleys of Europe. Your kind thrives. In Europe, winter is long and dark, but the rewards are great. Reindeer, wild horses, and mammoth provide meat, hides, and bone. In Africa, savannas offer a year-round variety of game. The competition from lions, hyenas, and leopards remains fierce. In Asia, forests and open plains alike reflect your needs, each demanding a slightly different set of skills. You interact with other hominin species during this time. In some regions, you may meet early Neanderthal populations, your close relatives. These encounters are unpredictable, sometimes peaceful, sometimes violent, perhaps even occasionally intimate, with genetic traces passed on. Each meeting is an exchange of knowledge, genes, and sometimes danger. As skilled as you are, the land still holds risks. Predators will take the unwary, and weather can kill as surely as a lion's claws. A sudden cold snap can freeze unprepared groups. A drought can empty rivers and drive animals away. But you've learned to prepare, keeping stores of dried meat, maintaining multiple water sources, traveling seasonally to follow the food. Evenings in your camp are a blend of rest and vigilance. The fire crackles. The air smells of roasting meat and wood smoke. Children play with small bones or bits of wood, imitating the motions of tool making. Adults sit in loose circles, some repairing spear points, others scraping hides, still others staring into the flames in quiet thought. The crackle of burning wood, the soft murmur of voices, and the occasional distant cry of an animal blend into a rhythm that feels almost timeless. There's no written history, no carved record, but you carry your past in your mind and in the minds of your group. You know the dangers, the routes, the seasons. You've begun to shape not only your tools and shelters, but your relationships, your use of the land, and even perhaps your sense of self. One night, the wind outside the cave mouth carries the scent of snow. You pull your hide covering tighter around your shoulders, feeling the heat of the fire on your face and the cold air at your back. Tomorrow, you'll follow the river downstream, looking for signs of migrating herds. The hunt will be dangerous, but your spears are ready, your group is strong, and the memory of past hunts fuels your confidence. You don't know it, but you're standing at the edge of a critical moment in human evolution. In the next few 100,000 years, your kind will give rise to multiple branches, Neanderthals in Europe, Denisovans in Asia, and eventually fully modern humans in Africa. The skills you've mastered, complex tool-making, cooperative hunting, fire mastery, adaptation to extreme climates, will be the inheritance they carry forward. For now, the snow begins to fall, the fire glows red, and you close your eyes to the sound of the wind, knowing you are prepared for whatever tomorrow brings. It's between about 400,000 and 40,000 years ago now, and you are not alone in the human world. In fact, you're part of a crowded evolutionary stage, one where multiple hominin species walk the earth at the same time. You are either a Neanderthal in Ice Age Europe or Western Asia, or a Denisov in somewhere farther east. deep in the forests and mountains of Asia. You may even be one of the small but hardy Homo sapiens populations beginning to leave Africa, your paths crossing those of these other humans. This is the age of close relatives, different in appearance, adapted to different environments, yet capable of the same essential acts: tool-making, hunting, shelter building, social life, and sometimes capable of sharing more than just territory. If you are a Neanderthal, your world is dominated by Ice Age extremes. The summers are short and cool, the winters long and bitterly cold. You are stocky and powerfully built, with a wide rib cage and short limbs that help retain heat. Your face is broad, with a large nose to warm frigid air before it reaches your lungs. Your brain is at least as large as that of modern humans, sometimes larger, housed in a long, low skull with a heavy brow ridge. Your environment is often a treeless steppe, dotted with shrubs and hardy grasses, grazed by herds of mammoth, woolly rhinoceros, reindeer, bison, and wild horses. You hunt these animals with skill, using thrusting spears to target them at close range. Sometimes you drive them toward natural traps, gullies, cliffs, or bogs, where the kill becomes easier. The hunts are dangerous, injuries are common, but you care for the wounded, helping them recover. If you are a Denisovan, your world is different. Mountain forests, river valleys, and cave systems across Asia. The climate varies wildly from region to region. Some of your kin live in cold highlands, others in temperate lowlands. You may never meet a Neanderthal directly, but your genetics will mingle when your ranges overlap. You are robust like them, adapted to your own challenges, but the archaeological record of your life will be frustratingly thin for future scientists. Both Neanderthals and Denisovans use tools that go beyond the Acheulean hand axe. You have adopted the prepared core Lavawa technique and often take it further, producing specialized points, scrapers, and blades. In some areas, you haft stone points to wooden shafts with resin and sinew, creating spears that can be thrown as well as thrust. This is a significant leap. Distance hunting reduces the risk of close encounters with dangerous prey. Your use of fire is constant and sophisticated. Hearths appear in your caves and shelters, ringed with stones to contain embers. You use fire to cook meat, soften plant foods, and warm your shelters. In colder climates, it's not just comfort, it's survival. You gather dry wood in advance, sometimes storing it under overhangs or in caves to keep it from snow and rain. You also prepare hides for clothing. Neanderthals scrape and soften skins, shaping them into simple garments, tied with sinew or secured with bone pins. They're not tailored to the level later humans will achieve, but they keep the cold out and allow you to range farther in winter. In warmer seasons, lighter coverings are worn, or none at all. Your shelters range from caves and rock overhangs to built structures of wood, stone, and hides. In some regions, mammoth bones form the framework for hide-covered huts, creating insulated spaces against the wind. Campsites may be reused for generations, the ground littered with stone flakes, broken tools, and the bones of meals long past. Socially, you live in small to medium-sized groups, perhaps 20 to 50 individuals, though gatherings of larger numbers may occur for hunts or seasonal migrations. You share food widely, care for the injured, and bury your dead. Yes, bury. Neanderthals in particular often dig shallow graves, sometimes placing the body in a curled position, occasionally with tools, animal bones, or flowers. Whether this is purely practical or carries symbolic meaning is debated, but the act itself shows planning and care. You also work materials beyond stone. Bone, antler, and ivory are shaped into points, awls, and beads. Some of these beads are coloured with ochre, a pigment ground from iron-rich earth. It may be used for decoration, body paint, or symbolic marking. The use of pigment suggests a mind capable of thinking beyond immediate survival, of self-presentation, identity, and perhaps ritual. Your hunting strategies are finely tuned to your environment. In open steppe, you coordinate drives that push herds toward ambush points. In forested terrain, you use stealth and cover, relying on close-range attacks with thrusting spears. You track animals by footprints, droppings, and signs of grazing or browsing. You know when herds migrate and where they pause to rest or drink. Interactions with Homo sapiens begin sporadically during this time, especially in the Middle East and Central Asia. Sometimes these encounters are violent, competition for territory, resources, or mates. Other times they lead to trade, knowledge exchange, and interbreeding. The genetic legacy of these meetings will survive in the DNA of modern humans for tens of thousands of years. Neanderthal genes in all non-African populations, Denisovan genes in people of Oceania and parts of Asia. But these exchanges are not enough to erase the differences between your groups. Homo sapiens often brings more efficient tools, longer-range projectiles, and possibly more complex social networks. They may outcompete you in certain regions, though in others you will hold your ground for thousands of years. Your language, if we can call it that, is richer than that of earlier humans. The anatomy of your throat and skull suggests you can produce a wide range of sounds. Whether you have full language as modern humans do is debated, but your communication is certainly sophisticated enough to coordinate hunts, teach tool-making, and convey social information. Art is rare, but not absent. Neanderthals in some caves leave abstract engravings, lines, crosshatches, and shapes carved into rock. There is evidence of feather collection, possibly for decoration. In a few cases, shells are pierced, perhaps to be worn as ornaments. These may seem small steps, but they hint at symbolic thinking, the ability to create and use symbols to represent ideas. Life is still dangerous. Large predators remain a constant threat: lions, cave bears, hyenas, and leopards. Winter storms can trap you in shelters for days, limiting food supplies. Injuries from hunts are common: broken bones, deep cuts, joint damage from years of physical strain. Yet skeletal evidence shows many individuals lived long after serious injuries, meaning the group cared for them. This compassion is one of your defining traits. As the Ice Age climate swings back and forth, your adaptability is tested. Glacial advances push you south, warmer periods draw you north again. In some areas, advancing glaciers wipe out entire habitats, forcing migrations. In others, warming climates bring forests that change the kinds of prey available. You adjust your hunting and foraging strategies each time. Evenings in your shelter are quiet, but purposeful. Firelight flickers against the walls, casting moving shadows of figures working, eating, or resting. You hear the soft scrape of stone on stone as a tool is sharpened and the snap of bone as marrow is extracted. The low murmur of voices. Outside, the wind howls or the forest creaks in the cold. But inside, the warmth and the group's presence create a bubble of safety. Sometimes you sit and stare into the flames, thinking about the day's hunt, the track you saw that morning, the face of a companion. You may not have words for memory or hope, but you carry both in the images that play in your mind. By the later part of this period, Homo sapiens will spread further into your ranges, and the balance will begin to shift. In Europe, Neanderthals will face competition from modern humans armed with new tools and possibly more complex social structures. In Asia, Denisovans will leave only traces in DNA and a few scattered fossils, but for tens of thousands of years, you hold your place, adapted to your lands, masters of your environments.
You do not know that you are near the end of your species' story. You only know the rhythm of your days. Wake with the light, hunt and gather, repair tools, tend fire, care for the young and the old. You live fully in the present as your ancestors did, shaping the land and being shaped by it.
And tonight, as snow drifts outside your shelter or rain patters on the forest canopy, you settle by the fire. The smoke curls upward, the flames dance, and your companions' voices murmur in the background. The world beyond is cold and dark, but here, inside this circle of light, you are warm, fed, and surrounded by your own kind. That, for now, it's about 300,000 to 200,000 years ago, and something extraordinary is happening in Africa. A new form of human, anatomically modern Homo sapiens, is emerging. You are one of them. Your skeleton is lighter than that of Neanderthals, or earlier archaic humans, your limbs longer, your body built for endurance. Most strikingly, your skull is high and rounded, with a prominent forehead and a brain averaging around 1,150 cubic centimeters, fully in the range of modern humans today. The land you inhabit is as varied as your body is adaptable. In some regions, savannas stretch wide beneath a burning sun. In others, forest edges hum with insects and birds. Rivers cut green ribbons through dry plains, and coastal zones offer the steady bounty of shellfish and tidal pools. You are no longer simply surviving in one niche. You are exploiting many, sometimes shifting between them as the seasons change. Your tools are changing too. The Lavala technique is now refined to an art, producing predictable, sharp flakes and points from carefully prepared cores. You make smaller, more specialized implements than your predecessors. Lightweight points for hafting onto spears, scrapers for working hides, blades for cutting plant fibers. Some tools are designed not just for immediate use, but for portability, to be carried and reused far from their place of origin. This mobility means you can travel farther and faster without depending on finding the right stone everywhere you go. You've also begun to work with materials beyond stone. Bone and antler are shaped into awls, points and barbed tools, useful for piercing hides or catching fish. Shells may be drilled and worn, suggesting decoration or symbolic meaning. Pigments, ochre, hematite, are collected, ground, and sometimes stored in shaped lumps. Whether for body paint, hide treatment, or ritual marking, these pigments point to a mind capable of symbolic thought. Your hunting strategies are more complex than ever before. You don't just chase prey, you plan hunts around migration patterns, seasonal plant growth, and the behavior of your quarry. In open country, you use persistence hunting and drive tactics. In wooded terrain, you work in coordinated groups to ambush. You can bring down animals much larger than yourself, and buffalo, even young hippos or elephants, through planning, teamwork, and patience. Fishing and shellfish gathering are becoming more common in coastal regions. You time your foraging with the tides, wading into shallow waters to gather mollusks or using woven traps to catch fish. The consistent food source from coastal areas supports larger, more stable groups, which in turn allows for longer-term camps. Your shelters reflect a new level of intention. You still use natural features, caves, rock overhangs, but you also build with purpose. Frameworks of wood or bone are covered with hides or woven mats, creating wind and rain-resistant spaces. Hearths are placed centrally, with living areas arranged around them. These camps may be used for weeks or months, depending on the season, before you move on to new resources. Fire is entirely in your control now. You can make it with friction or by striking stones to produce sparks. You keep fuel ready, and your hearths are deliberately maintained. Fire isn't just for survival, it's part of daily life. You cook nearly all your meat, soften tough plants, and boil roots. Cooking makes food safer, more digestible, and more energy-rich, freeing your digestive system from the heavy chewing and gut work that earlier humans endured. Social life is rich and layered. Groups may number 30 to 50 individuals, often linked to other groups through kinship and seasonal gatherings. These gatherings are more than just survival meetings. They're opportunities to exchange mates, share knowledge, and strengthen alliances. Stories, songs, and symbolic displays may be part of these events, though in forms that will leave little direct trace for archaeologists. The sharing of food is common, especially after large hunts. A successful kill benefits everyone, and hunters gain prestige for providing meat. Skilled toolmakers, Foragers and elders who remember migration routes or dangerous places also hold status in the group. You live in a web of mutual dependence, where each person's role supports the survival of the whole. Your capacity for symbolic behavior is deepening. Some of the earliest known examples of art appear in this period. Engraved lines on ochre pieces from Blombos Cave in South Africa, shell beads from North Africa and the Levant. These are not random marks. They follow patterns, suggesting intentional design, whether they serve as personal adornment, group identifiers, or ritual items. They show that you're thinking in symbols, representing ideas in physical form. Burials become more deliberate. Some graves are shallow pits with bodies placed carefully, occasionally accompanied by tools, ochre, or ornaments. This may reflect beliefs about life after death, or a desire to honor the individual. Either way, it shows that your mind is reaching beyond the here and now into the realm of abstraction. You are also a storyteller, though your stories are woven from gesture, vocal sound, and shared memory. Around the fire, hunters may mimic the chase of a gazelle, mothers may sing to restless infants, and elders may recount the path to a far-off waterhole. These acts bind the group together, passing knowledge and identity through generations. Your ability to plan is unmatched by any earlier human. You prepare for hunt days in advance, carrying tools, selecting routes, and even creating temporary caches of supplies along the way. You store food in pits lined with grass or stone, protecting it from scavengers. You move seasonally, not just in reaction to scarcity, but in anticipation of abundance. Your range is expanding. Within Africa, modern humans are now found from the southern coast to the northern deserts, each group adapted to its local environment. You travel long distances to exchange goods or information, carrying exotic stone from far-off quarries, shells from the coast, or pigments from a unique source. These exchanges connect distant groups into loose networks, spreading ideas and genes across the continent. Outside Africa, a few of your kind have begun to venture into the Middle East, where they encounter Neanderthals. The interactions are complex, sometimes cooperative, sometimes competitive, sometimes intimate. These encounters leave traces in DNA that will persist for tens of thousands of years. Predators are still a threat, though less so than in earlier times. Lions, leopards, and hyenas remain dangerous. But your weapons, fire, and group coordination make you formidable. Large predators may still test the edges of your camp at night, their eyes reflecting firelight. But you are no longer a passive part of the prey list. In many regions, you are now a top predator, capable of influencing the distribution and behavior of other species. This new power comes with a change in the landscape. Your hunting can deplete local herds if you stay too long, forcing you to move or adapt. Your fires clear brush, encouraging new plant growth, but also reshaping habitats. You are beginning, in small ways, to act as an ecological force, altering the environment to suit your needs. Evenings in camp are no longer purely about vigilance. They are about connection. The hearth is the center, its glow casting faces in gold and shadow. Someone might scrape a hide while humming softly. Another retouches a spear point with careful strikes. Children play nearby, imitating tool making or chasing each other in the firelight. The smell of roasted meat mingles with smoke, and sparks spiral upward into the night. Your thoughts, though bound to the immediate needs of survival, sometimes drift. You may wonder about the far-off mountains, the source of a river, or the changing patterns of the stars. You may feel curiosity about other groups, or imagine the lives of the animals you hunt. These are the first glimmers of a restless, questioning mind. The mind that will one day send humans across oceans and into space. By around 2,000 years ago, Homo sapiens is firmly established in Africa. You are fully modern in anatomy, and more importantly, in capacity for thought, planning, and creativity. Your descendants will carry these abilities outward, crossing into Asia, Europe, and eventually every habitable corner of the globe. But for now, the night is warm, the fire steady, and the group close around you. Tomorrow, you may travel to a known waterhole, or follow the coastline for shellfish, or climb into the hills for flint. You move through the land, not as a wanderer without direction, but as part of a story, one that began millions of years ago and will continue far into the future, shaped by every step you take. It's about 50,000 to 70,000 years ago now, and something has taken root in your mind that no hominin before you has ever fully mastered: the ability to think in symbols and express those symbols in art, ornament, and ritual. You are still Homo sapiens, physically much like a modern human, but culturally you're crossing a threshold that will redefine what it means to be human. The evidence is scattered, scratched into bone, drilled into shell, painted onto cave walls, but each piece speaks to a profound shift. You're no longer just making tools for survival. You're making things that mean something. A bead worn around the neck is not food, shelter, or weapon. It is a message of identity, status, belonging, or beauty. The ochre you grind isn't just for treating hides. You mix it into pastes and smear it onto skin, onto objects, onto the walls of your shelter. Sometimes it's bright red, sometimes deep brown, sometimes yellow, depending on the minerals at the source. You may decorate your own body before a hunt, mark the faces of children during a coming-of-age ritual, or cover the dead in pigment before burial. The meaning of these acts is known to you and your group, but to future archaeologists, they will be the first whisper of symbolic life. At Blombos Cave on the southern coast of Africa, someone from your time takes a piece of ochre and carves cross-hatched lines into its surface. It's not a random scratch. It's deliberate, repeated, and precise. A pattern. It serves no direct practical purpose, but it is clearly intentional. It is thought made visible. Your ornaments tell stories without words. You collect shells from beaches, not just for food, but for their shapes and colors. You pierce them, string them on sinew, and wear them around the neck or wrist. When you travel to meet another group, they see these ornaments and know something about you, where you've been, who you are, perhaps even who you belong to. This is a social technology, a way to signal identity, kinship, and alliances without speech. Inland, bone and ivory become materials for art as well as tools. You carve animal figures, smooth them with care, and sometimes leave them in places that seem chosen for meaning, deep in caves, near water sources, or beside the dead. You might never explain why, even to yourself, but you do it anyway. Ritual emerges alongside art. Burials become more consistent, and in some places, more elaborate. Graves may contain tools, ornaments, ochre, or food offerings. Some bodies are positioned carefully, perhaps reflecting beliefs about life after death or symbolic journeys. In your mind, death is no longer just the end. It's part of a story that continues in ways you can't fully explain, but deeply feel. This symbolic capacity is also transforming the hunt. You might decorate spears or shields with markings that represent the animal you seek, hoping to bring success. You may act out a hunt before it begins, each person taking the role of a different animal or hunter, rehearsing the event in symbolic form. These rituals bind the group together, reinforcing coordination and trust. Your ability to create and understand symbols is inseparable from your growing mastery of language. While earlier humans had complex communication, you have full syntax and vocabulary. You can describe things that aren't here and now. Past hunts, future plans, imagined possibilities. You can share knowledge about a plant that blooms only once a year, or warn about a predator seen days ago in a distant valley. This transforms your social life. Knowledge spreads not only within your group, but between groups. Stories of far-off places, dangerous animals, or rich hunting grounds travel along the same routes as stone, shell, and pigment. Over time, these stories become part of your shared identity, a cultural memory carried by people, not just by place. Your art is not confined to small objects. In some parts of the world, you begin to use the walls of caves as your canvas. Fingers dipped in pigment leave streaks and handprints. Simple shapes, circles, dots, lines, appear in clusters. These are the seeds of the great cave paintings that will bloom tens of thousands of years later in Europe and Indonesia. But here, in their earliest form, they are experiments in representation. I was here. We saw this. This matters. Music may be part of this flowering as well. The earliest instruments, flutes carved from bird bones, rattles made from gourds or seed pods, may exist in your world. The beat of hands on hollow logs or the rhythmic striking of stones could accompany rituals, dances, and storytelling. Music binds the group, synchronizing movement and emotion in ways no other sound can. Symbolic thinking also changes the way you see the natural world. Animals are not just meat, they are characters in your mental universe, with traits and powers you respect or fear. Some may be totems for your group, creatures you identify with, emulate, or honor. You may tell stories about them, explaining their behavior or their place in the world through narrative. Plants, too, take on new roles. Certain flowers might be used in decoration. Specific herbs might be gathered for their scent or believed power. You begin to classify the world not only by what is edible or dangerous, but by what is beautiful, meaningful, or powerful. This symbolic capacity has practical consequences. It allows you to plan and coordinate on scales earlier humans could not. You can organize hunts that take place days later, involving multiple groups. You can divide labor with clear instructions. You can teach complex skills without direct imitation, using verbal description to supplement demonstration. This accelerates cultural transmission. Your knowledge now outpaces the slow grind of biological evolution. You also remember your past in richer detail. You can recount not just "we killed a gazelle," but the sequence of events, the strategy used, the dangers faced, the weather that day. This memory becomes a library of strategies, mistakes, and lessons for the future. It also becomes entertainment stories told for pleasure, as well as instruction. In coastal areas, your art and symbolism mingle with subsistence in unique ways. Shell beads may double as trade goods, pigments as markers of group identity, decorated tools as both functional and prestige items. The people who control access to certain symbolic resources, rare shells, unique pigment sources, may hold influence beyond their hunting skill. Inland, cave sites sometimes become seasonal gathering points, marked by layers of discarded pigment, broken ornaments, and communal hearths. These sites may hold meaning that endures for generations, becoming places where marriages are arranged, disputes settled, and alliances renewed. Your symbolic world also extends into dreams and imagination. You may see shapes in the firelight and assign them meaning, interpret patterns in the stars, or read omens in animal behavior. These interpretations may guide decisions, from where to hunt to when to move camp. Whether or not they are accurate matters less than the fact that they unite the group in shared belief. This capacity for belief will one day give rise to religion, myth, and philosophy. For now, it is the quiet hum beneath your daily life, the sense that events have meaning, that the world is connected by more than cause and effect. Evenings in your camp are transformed by this new symbolic life. The fire is not just a place for warmth and cooking, it is a stage, a gallery, a council hall. Stories are told with gestures and voices, beads catch the flicker of flames, ochre-painted faces glow red in the light. The youngest children watch with wide eyes, absorbing not just the skills but the identity of their people. When you sleep, it is with dreams full of animals, hunts, and symbols. You might wake with an image in your mind and scratch it into the dirt with a stick. or carve it into a piece of bone. The marks may last only days before the rain washes them away, but the act of making them has already changed you. You are shaping ideas into forms, externalizing thought so it can be shared. By the end of this period, the symbolic revolution is well underway. Your people carry ornaments, pigments, decorated tools, and the seeds of art wherever they go. You've begun to shape not just the land, but the meaning of the land, attaching stories, names, and significance to places. You don't yet know that these skills will help your descendants cross continents, survive ice ages, and outlast every other human species. But tonight, as the fire burns low and your beads click softly against your skin, you know that what you make with your hands is more than just an object. It is a sign, a memory, a message, and that is something entirely new in the long story of humanity. It's between about 70,000 and 40,000 years ago, and the people around your fire are no longer bound to Africa alone. You and your kin, Homo Sapiens, are on the move, pushing into the Arabian Peninsula, crossing into Asia, and eventually stepping onto the cold ground of Ice Age Europe. This is the Great Dispersal, a migration that will carry your kind to every corner of the globe. You are not the first humans to set foot in these lands. Neanderthals and Denisovans have been here for hundreds of thousands of years, but you are bringing something they have never faced before, a blend of adaptability, symbolic culture, and complex cooperation that will in time tip the balance in your favor. The journey is not a single march, it is a wave, rolling outward over generations. One group follows the shoreline north, living on fish, shellfish, and seabirds. Another moves inland, following rivers through grassland and forest. Some head east toward South Asia, where monsoon rains feed dense forests. Others push north into colder steppes where mammoth and reindeer graze. The routes are as varied as the landscapes, sometimes hugging the coast, sometimes crossing open plains, sometimes threading through mountain passes. Everywhere you go, you carry your world in your mind and in your hands. Fire-making skills, hunting strategies, knowledge of edible plants, and the ornaments, pigments, and tools that mark you as fully modern humans. You are a walking package of technology, memory, and culture, able to set up life almost anywhere there is water, food, and fuel. In Asia, you encounter Denisovans. You may not think of them as a separate species. To you, they are simply other people. Sometimes you compete for resources, sometimes you trade materials or mates. Interbreeding occurs, and fragments of their DNA will live on in your descendants, especially in those who will one day inhabit Oceania and parts of Southeast Asia. In colder northern ranges, Denisovans may share knowledge of surviving in the mountains, how to find shelter, where to track prey in snow. In turn, you bring new tools, ornaments, and ways of organizing the hunt. In Europe and parts of Western Asia, you meet Neanderthals. They are powerful, skilled, and entirely at home in their Ice Age world. Some encounters are tense, even violent. Others are surprisingly intimate. Alliances, exchanges, and interbreeding leave lasting genetic traces. Your different toolkits sometimes merge. Techniques for hafting stone points with resin, for scraping hides, or for hunting large game may pass in both directions. But while they are masters of the cold steppe, you bring something different, a capacity to adapt to multiple climates without losing efficiency, and a social network that stretches farther than theirs. Your tools are evolving rapidly. In Africa, Asia, and Europe, new blade technologies emerge, long, narrow flakes struck from prepared cores, sharp enough for precise cutting. Microlith's tiny stone blades are hafted into wooden or bone shafts to make composite tools, barbed spears, arrows, fishing implements. In some regions, bows and arrows begin to appear, allowing you to hunt at longer ranges with greater accuracy. This is a profound advantage over thrusting spears, reducing the risk of close encounters with dangerous prey. Your shelters are just as adaptable. In warm coastal zones, you build lightweight windbreaks from branches and mats. In open plains, you create hide tents anchored with stone rings. In cold northern environments, you use mammoth bones as frameworks, covering them with thick hides to create insulated dwellings. Caves and rock shelters remain prized for their protection from wind and rain, and you leave behind painted walls decorated with animal figures, dots, and hand stencils that may carry meaning known only to your group. Your symbolic life travels with you. Wherever you go, beads, pendants, and pigment caches appear. Some ornaments are made from local shells or teeth. Others are from materials traded across great distances, showing that your social networks extend far beyond the immediate group. These connections are survival tools as important as any spear. When resources fail in one place, allies in another may share food or shelter. Rituals become more visible in the archaeological record. Burial sites from this period contain not only bodies but grave goods, tools, ornaments, ochre, sometimes animal parts. Some burials are of children, marked with care and accompanied by items they could not have used in life, suggesting symbolic or spiritual beliefs about their place in the group and perhaps an afterlife. Your diet is as varied as your range. On coasts, you gather shellfish, seaweed, and fish, supplementing with seabirds and small game. In savannas and forests, you hunt antelope, wild cattle and pigs, and gather fruits, tubers, and seeds. In cold steppes, you target reindeer, bison, horse, and mammoth, preserving meat by freezing or drying it over smoke. This flexibility is one of your greatest strengths. You are not tied to any single food source and can shift between hunting, fishing, and gathering as needed. Fishing in particular becomes a specialized skill in some regions. You craft bone harpoons with barbs that hold fish on the line, and you time your efforts to spawning runs. In tropical rivers, you use woven baskets to trap fish, setting them in shallow channels where the water flows fastest. Long-distance travel brings challenges you've never faced before. New predators, tigers in Asia, bears in Europe, crocodiles in tropical rivers, test your vigilance. Diseases you've never encountered can sweep through a group. Food sources may be unfamiliar, requiring trial and error to determine what is safe to eat. But your language and social learning speed the adaptation. One person's discovery, whether it's a poisonous berry or a rich fishing ground, can be shared across the group within hours, across multiple groups within days. Your ability to remember and transmit complex knowledge is now a cultural engine. Stories about the land, its rivers, its dangerous places, its rich hunting grounds, are passed on through spoken language, gestures, and symbolic markers. You may leave arrangements of stones, carved posts, or pigment marks to indicate a good campsite or warn of danger. These are the beginnings of what will one day become maps and written signs. As you move into Europe's Ice Age landscapes, you carry with you not just technology but art. Caves become sanctuaries for imagery, animals painted in ochre, manganese, and charcoal, stenciled handprints, abstract symbols. The act of painting may be part of a ritual before hunting, or a way of recording memory, or an expression of identity. Whatever the reason, it is more than decoration. It is a physical record of thought, visible to others long after the maker has gone. Music follows you into every environment. Flutes carved from bird bones or mammoth ivory produce clear, haunting notes. Percussive rhythms are made with drums of stretched hide or the clack of stones. Music accompanies dances, rituals, and perhaps even hunts, strengthening bonds and synchronizing the group's movements. Your encounters with other humans shape your future in ways you cannot see. The genetic exchanges with Neanderthals and Denisovans provide adaptations, genes that help regulate immune systems, cope with cold climates, or process certain foods. These advantages will remain in the human gene pool long after your contemporaries vanish from the landscape. Competition is fierce in some regions. Neanderthals know the terrain intimately, and in head-to-head contests for game, they are formidable. But you may have the advantage of faster cultural change. You can adopt a new hunting method, tool type, or shelter design within a few generations, while others may take far longer to innovate. Over time, this speed may give you the edge. The journey is not without loss. As you move into new lands, some groups vanish, wiped out by disease, conflict, or simply by the harshness of the land. Others merge with neighboring groups, their distinct traditions fading into a blended culture. The map of humanity is constantly redrawn, each migration a gamble with survival as the prize. Evenings on the trail are quieter than those in long-term camps. You gather around smaller fires, conserving fuel in open landscapes where wood is scarce. You eat what you've caught or gathered that day, repair tools, and talk softly about the route ahead. Children fall asleep curled against parents. The flicker of firelight dancing over beads and painted faces. The stars above are strange in some places, familiar in others, but always watched. By 40,000 years ago, Homo sapiens is on nearly every continent, except the most remote. You've crossed deserts, mountains and seas. You've met and mingled with other human species. You've carried your technology, your art, and your ideas into every new home. The dispersal is not over. You will soon reach Australia, the Arctic, and much later the Americas. But the foundation is laid. You don't think of yourself as part of a vast migration. You think about tomorrow's hunt, the water source a day's walk ahead, the mate you hope to find, the child you need to protect. Yet every step you take is part of a movement that will in time circle the globe. And tonight, as you sit by the fire on the edge of a wide plain, the air cool and the smell of roasting meat mingling with smoke, you look at your companions, their ornaments, their painted skin, their careful tools, and you know that wherever you go next, you will take all of this with you. It's about 40,000 to 200,000 years ago, and the human story is entering its final prehistory chapters before the long arc of written history begins. The migrations have carried your kind far beyond the African cradle, into Europe's icy steppes, the forests of Southeast Asia, the coasts of Australia, and eventually toward the vast unpeopled lands of the Americas. By now, Homo sapiens stands alone as the last surviving human species. The Neanderthals, Denisovans, and other archaic humans have vanished, some absorbed into your gene pool, others gone entirely. You are the inheritor of every innovation, adaptation, and fragment of knowledge passed down from those who came before. The landscapes you inhabit could not be more different from one another. On one side of the planet, reindeer graze across tundra, their breath steaming in the cold air. On another, coral reefs flash with fish in turquoise shallows. In the highlands you move among bamboo groves. In deserts you cross salt flats under a sun that feels like a weight. Wherever you settle, you shape the land and are shaped by it in return. Your technology now reflects not just survival, but mastery of place. In the frozen north, you sew fitted clothing from hides and furs, using bone needles to stitch seams that keep out wind and snow. In tropical forests, you fashion lightweight baskets and fish traps from woven plant fibers. In dry grasslands, you build windbreaks from thorn branches and store water in gourds. Each tool, each structure, is designed not simply to endure the environment, but to make it work for you. You've also mastered the art of composite tools. Spear points of stone or bone are set into wooden shafts with resin and sinew. Microlith blades are fitted into slots along a bone handle to create versatile cutting edges. In some regions, the bow and arrow have spread, transforming the hunt with speed, range, and accuracy. This innovation allows you to take down fast-moving game from a safe distance and to hunt in more open terrain without relying solely on ambush. Your art has reached a new level of complexity. Caves deep in Ice Age Europe bloom with painted herds of bison, horses, and mammoth. In Indonesia, Red ochre outlines of human hands mark walls that have not seen sunlight for tens of thousands of years. In Australia, ochre figures dance across rock faces, recording dreamtime stories that will be told and retold for countless generations. These artworks are not mere decoration, they are records of memory, belief, and identity. They are how you anchor meaning to place, turning the land itself into a library of human thought. Portable art flourishes as well. Carved figurines, sometimes animals, sometimes human, sometimes hybrid, appear in ivory, bone and stone. Pendants, beads and elaborate headgear mark social status or ritual roles. Patterns incised into tools or ornaments suggest a shared visual language, perhaps a precursor to symbols that will one day become writing. The social fabric of your life is now thick with tradition. Kinship networks bind groups together across wide territories. Trade routes stretch for hundreds of kilometers, carrying shells inland, obsidian across mountains, ochre from rare deposits to distant camps. These exchanges are not only economic, they carry news, songs, stories, and marriage alliances, knitting scattered bands into larger cultural units. Rituals are embedded in the turning of seasons. Certain hunts are preceded by ceremonies, dances, chants, the painting of bodies and weapons. Burials often follow patterned rites, a body curled or stretched in a sick position, ochre sprinkled on skin, grave goods placed with care. These acts carry meaning beyond practicality. They speak of belonging, of memory, of a shared understanding of life and death. Your diet is astonishingly diverse, shaped by both place and season. In the north, mammoth, reindeer, fish, and stored berries sustain you. In the tropics, you eat an abundance of fruits, tubers, fish, and small game. Coastal groups rely heavily on shellfish, seaweed, and marine mammals. You know how to smoke meat for preservation, how to grind seeds into flour, how to detoxify certain plants through cooking or soaking. This breadth of diet gives your kind a resilience unmatched by any other animal. Fire is now an absolute necessity, not just for warmth and cooking, but for shaping landscapes. In grassland regions, you set controlled burns to encourage new growth that draws grazing animals. In forests, you burn undergrowth to make travel easier and open space for certain plants. You are no longer a passive participant in ecosystems. You are an ecological force, changing environments on purpose. Language has become the great multiplier of all these abilities. You can teach not just how to do something, but why it works. You can explain a hunt that failed and propose a new strategy. You can tell the story of a place so vividly that someone who has never seen it can find it and use it. You can sing, recite, and chant, turning memory into art and performance. Language carries rules, myths, and histories, binding your group's past to its future. Music is woven through daily life. Songs mark the rhythm of work, the pace of walking, the solemnity of ritual. Drums, rattles, flutes, and stringed instruments made from sinew and wood accompany dances that tell stories without words. The sound of a flute echoing in a cave is both entertainment and enchantment, a reminder that beauty can exist for its own sake. You've also learned the power of distance alliances. The same networks that move shells and ochre can carry critical survival information. A friend of a friend in a distant valley might tell of herds moving early this year, or of a sickness spreading through camps. This web of connection allows you to act before disaster strikes, a safety net no solitary species could ever match. Conflict exists, of course. Disputes over resources, territory, or mates sometimes flare into violence. But your groups also practice negotiation, gift-giving, and alliance-building to avoid the cost of constant fighting. Some disputes are resolved through ritualized contests, tests of skill, endurance, or courage, rather than open combat. By now, humans have crossed to Australia, adapting to its dry interior and rich coasts. In the far north, you follow reindeer herds across frozen tundra. In Southeast Asia, you move between islands by boat, navigating by stars, currents, and the flight of seabirds. In each place, you bring the full package of human life: tools, art, language, fire, and the social glue that holds groups together. This is also a time of rapid change in the natural world. Glaciers advance and retreat, sea levels rise and fall, and with them coastlines shift. Land bridges open between continents, then disappear beneath waves. Your mobility allows you to follow the opportunities and avoid the worst hazards, but it also means that places you once knew may vanish in a single lifetime. The last of the Neanderthals disappeared around 40,000 years ago. In some regions, you may have witnessed their passing, fewer camps seen in the distance. Fewer hunters met on the trail. Some were absorbed into your kind. Others likely faded as their populations dwindled and resources grew scarce. You may not have understood that an entire type of human was vanishing, but the absence would have been felt. Now your only rivals are yourselves. Human groups compete for the best hunting grounds, the richest rivers, the most defensible shelters, but they also join forces when needed, pooling knowledge and skill to face environmental changes. Evenings are the heart of your world. The fire is the center, its light drawing faces close. Children listen as elders tell of hunts, travels, and the deeds of ancestors. Hunters repair weapons, women weave or prepare food, and someone begins to hum, the sound rising into a song that carries into the night. Above, the stars are bright in ways future generations will rarely see, and their patterns are as familiar as the paths of rivers and hills. You name the stars, tell stories about them, use them to mark seasons or guide travel. In doing so, you are laying the groundwork for astronomy, for calendars, for navigation across oceans yet unseen. The act of looking upward and wondering is as human as making fire. By the close of this period, your species has filled nearly every environment it can reach on foot or by simple boats. You've built the skills and networks that will allow you to survive ice ages, cross seas, and eventually invent agriculture. The world is vast, but it is no longer empty. You have left your mark on every place you've touched. The wind down comes not from stopping, but from recognizing the continuity. Every innovation you live with, fire, tools, language, art, was born from countless small steps, stretching back millions of years. Every person around your fire carries the echoes of those who first snapped stone, first kept an ember alive, first carved a mark that meant something more than itself. And tonight, as the fire burns low and the last embers glow red against the dark, the air is cool and the night still. You lie back on a hide listening to the murmurs of the camp, the occasional crack of wood in the fire. The stars overhead are silent witnesses, just as they were for the first humans who looked up and wondered. Your eyes grow heavy. The journey through savanna, forest, desert, and ice has brought you here to this moment of warmth and rest. You are the culmination of every adaptation, every risk, every story told in the flicker of firelight. And tomorrow, as always, you will rise, move, and make the world a little more human than it was the day before. Sweet dreams.